Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series. How are all of you? It's so great to see your smiley faces at the time of this live show. We do all our shows live. It is Friday, so that means the weekend is on our doorstep. Of course, we'll be here with shows over the course of the weekend. Hope you guys are having a good day. If you're not having a good day, this is the place to come for some light love and levity, or levity as we call it, with our viewers who watch literally from all around the world. Inspiring conversations, amazing guests, great entertainment, and conversations, not interviews, but conversations that we have, freestyle, warm, inviting, and a lot of fun. We always learn something. We always have a good time. I'm your host, Jim Masters, and we've done about 400 plus episodes of this series. You can binge watch all of them right here on our YouTube channel at Jim Masters TV. As a matter of fact, we would love it if you subscribe to that YouTube channel, show it some levity. Subscribe to it and click the notification bell so you never miss any of the amazing episodes that we have, plus surprise pop-up shows on location and so much more. Again, the channel is the one you're watching right now, Jim Masters TV. So give it a subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. We would love that. That's that red button you see in the upper hand corner of the screen. It's either there or there when you look at our channel, and click subscribe. And also drop a comment and a thumbs up on the episodes on our show and our series, because that really helps us big time, as does subscribing to our YouTube channel. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, click the notification bell so you never miss anything, and then drop a like. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, and thanks to those of you who've been doing that. We really appreciate that. And in addition to doing that, tell your friends about our show and drop a comment on our YouTube channel as well. How's everybody doing? We've got an amazing guest live and direct in just a second from Los Angeles, California. Prolific singer, songwriter, also senior editor of American Songwriter, and so much more. Paul ZOLLO is with us. He's worked with some of the greats in the industry. He's one of them himself. And we've got lots of music for you tonight, live and otherwise. He's going to perform live for us. He's all set. He did a sound check. And we've got some other real cool video performances and so much more. But we've got an amazing show of great conversation and music joining you and joining me and joining us in just a second. We love it. Mary Bishop, watching in Florida, says, hello, Jim and Lovities. I told Paul all about levity. He says, bring it on. He loves it. He loves the idea of levity. So let's check in with more of our levities here. Happy Friday evening, Jim and Levity family. Hope everyone is having a great start to the weekend. We sure are. Hope you are as well. Sherry Larson's here. Hi, everyone. Good to see you as well, Sherry Larson and Kathy. Hello, Jim and Levities. Welcome to the weekend. Kathy's watching in Cleveland. Jane is watching in Sweden. She's here. Marty Thompson in Nashville is here as well. Juanita is watching in South Africa. Good to see you, Juanita. Merlin is watching in Ontario, Canada. Good to see you as well, Merlin. And of course, we welcome you and everybody else that's watching live or later on. We appreciate all the folks that are also watching later on in our archives, because we archive all these episodes. Hey, Bebette is here as well. Thank you very much, Bebette. Good to have you with us. And Joan Sando. Hello, Jim and all lovelies. Happy Friday. Welcome, Paul, as well. Good day to you too, Marty. Appreciate you having you here with us and celebrating good music and so much more, as we welcome a very special guest to the show who is a legend in the business. He's really amazing. Author, music writer, songwriter, photographer, born in Chicago. He's written several books, including Songwriters on Songwriting, Expanded Edition, which is known as the Songwriter's Bible, used as text in colleges around the world. It's been a bestseller for more than 25 years. The sequel, More Songwriters on Songwriting, was published in 2016 as well. Singer and songwriter with Trop Records. He's a wonderful artist, and Paul has made 2 solo albums. The most recent, Universal Cure, which features the epic Clown Jam at the Moose Lodge, and Orange Avenue, his debut album, which features a duet with the luminous Art Garfunkel. Yes, and that's on Being in This World. He's written songs with many great artists, including the great Steve Allen and also Dan Byrne, Severin Brown, Bob Malone, who was a guest on our show as well. With Daryl Purpose, he's co-written many songs, including all of those on his album Still the Birds. With Tom Petty, Paul wrote Conversations with Tom Petty, originally published in 2006, comprising a year of interviews, sold out completely following Tom Petty's death in 2017. A new edition, which features Paul's photo of Tom Petty's final concert and more, was published in 2020. And the new foreword by Tom Petty's beloved wife, Dana, was in that as well. He's also had time to chat with some of the best: Randy Newman, Paul Simon, Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan, and so many others too. His interview with Bob Dylan included being in Rolling Stone's Essential Dylan Interviews, was named both by the New York Times and the New Yorker as the best Dylan interview ever. Leonard Cohen said at his final press event ever, just weeks before he passed away, that his interview with Paul was the best ever done. Really amazing. We're so excited to have him here live and direct from the greater Los Angeles area. Let's welcome our very special guest. No, it isn't Zorro. It's Paul ZOLLO.
Hey, Jim. Good to see
you. Sometimes, like we were saying, they probably call you Zorro, right? Or you said Jello, too.
Well, that was my grandfather got Jello, but it haunted him for the rest of his life. Mr. Jello, I presume?
Yeah.
But I did get ZOLLO up till about 8. As I was saying, here in Los Angeles, I get Zoyo quite often, which I find really funny.
Yeah,
it's so not Zoyo, but it sounds cool.
And also, we also, this is funny. Also, Zoloft.
That's a lovely one. That's a modern one.
So how are you, and how have you been during this crazy pandemic and with everything closed and shut, and now fortunately coming back to life slowly but surely? How have you been through it all, my friend?
It's been a tough time. I lost people that I loved very much, and also great people that I knew from a distance but had reverence for, like John Prine, which started the whole thing, and a local hero from Chicago and a friend of mine and a songwriter I love so much. And that was a tough time. And also, it was like we were being on house arrest too, which is always strange. But fortunately with my work, I was able to just keep working through it. And that seemed to be the best way for me to do it. And also pretty productive, to work constantly. And this is kind of nice that we developed this. And yet I think we could keep this, and we could still do shows like this where I could be on your show even though we're in other cities. So there's been some positives to it. My son, I have a son in college, and he's done really well, and that was close to him. So that was the part that I was most worried about. So I'm glad it's coming to an end, and feeling great. It's absolutely. Like, growing up in Chicago, winter was terrible, but when it would end was so exciting. And that's kind of how this feels.
Yeah, you grew up in Chicago in the Windy City, home to deep dish pizza, which I still have to try.
It is the best.
It is the best.
Unless you're from New York and it's a religious thing. It's well, like they can't even accept that it's even pizza.
I know how that is. Do you have it shipped from Chicago to the West Coast so you get some?
I do, in fact, from Lou Malnati's, actually. They know how to freeze it, too. And, that's always been one of the great treats that my son and I love. But when he was little, one of those pizzas was a lot. Now he could eat one of those himself.
Exactly.
But it is good. And as soon as we go to Chicago, we do that usually the first night, So, we're serious about our pizza.
Let's talk about Chicago and how that city really influenced you in a lot of different ways. I mean, obviously their own music scene too, but what is it about growing up there and maybe some of the inspirations you had early on as a youth that sort of pointed you in the direction of wanting to get into music?
Well, part of it is that in Chicago, especially when I grew up, I was born in 1958, so I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. And our rooms, obviously, we didn't have computers or even TVs. There was TVs in the home, but not in your room. But we had our records, and there was nothing I loved more than records. And Chicago, even though it got freezing cold, like Antarctica for many, many months, the autumns are so beautiful. I don't know if they're the same then, but and as a kid, it seemed to last forever. So I started writing songs inspired by that, but also because there was nothing else to do really for me. But I could do music alone. I could go in my room and just learn a Paul Simon song or put on my records. And at first, I only had the one that would play only 45s. It had a cylinder. But then I got one we could play LPs too, and I lived in those LPs. They meant so much to me to this day, and songs just meant so much. So when I was 10, I just started playing, and I think a lot of that was out of having so much time alone. I don't know if I would have done that elsewhere. But the other important thing about Chicago for me Uh, Besides that, my family was there. That was important.
Yeah.
And my history was the Chicago folk music scene, which was really beautiful. And I mean, there was the folk music, the great people like Pete Seeger who would come to Chicago, but the local heroes, Steve Goodman, who wrote City of New Orleans, and John Prine were like the two of them, but the others too. And Steve Goodman, I don't know if people know that name, he was a really wonderful songwriter. City of New Orleans, he wrote, was a hit for Arlo Guthrie. But he was the guy that insisted that they give John Prine a chance. Like, you think I'm good? Listen to this guy.
Listen
That's
to
like
this guy. Yeah.
That's a very Chicago kind of thing. It's very generous. And I had what my mom would call chutzpah when I was a kid. You know, I started writing songs when I was 10. I would go backstage and, would you listen to my songs, sir? And I just figured that's what you should do if you're a songwriter. And they were so nice. And Steve Goodman gave me my first important songwriting lesson. I played him a song that was poetic, but, held together, but it didn't make much sense. And he said, that's good, but I could have written that whole song in 2 lines. And he was challenged to write a song like John Prine and another write a song that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful. But all of them were very supportive, and that's where I learned how to perform live. They had a lot of open mic nights. So long before I could sing in those clubs, I'd go and play there. And often it was terrible, but that's how you learn what not to do again, And
right.
So it was lucky that I grew up there.
Do you remember that very first song that you wrote?
That I wrote?
The one that
I do. It's kind of, it's a narcissistic thing to like, how could I forget that? It's my first song. It was momentous even then because I knew, wow, I love this. I love writing songs. It was summer of 1969. And it was called Time Changes the Seed. And I was actually at overnight camp in northern Wisconsin. And it wasn't very good. It didn't even start musically where it ends. Normally, you start where you end where you start. When it's into other keys, but I didn't know that at the time. But I loved doing it, and I wrote another one, and I just kept doing it a lot for many, many years. I wrote really awful songs for years, but I started so young that by the time I got old enough, I knew what I was doing. It takes a long time.
It takes time, right? You got to find your voice. You got to find it, right?
And it's an artistry to develop. It's not as simple as people might think to write a great song. That's just perfect that it just sounds like that wasn't hard, but to really do that, do it more than once.
Yeah.
That's a special talent, but it's also so much fun. I find songwriting.
Yeah, you love it. I mean, what came first for you? Is it the singing and songwriting before instruments, or would you say that you're a musician who happens to sing and write songs, or you're the singer-songwriter who happens to also be a great musician?
It's a very kind question. In fact, I think, we all sang as kids, just kind of singing along. And then I started piano lessons pretty young because my parents wanted me to, though I wasn't good at learning classical piano, but it didn't hurt me. I didn't start playing guitar until I was 10, and my brother started too, but I could sing on tune, which helped. And then almost immediately I started playing at 10. But so I probably started singing and then playing guitar, and I really became a better piano player from being a songwriter and going to the piano a lot to work on my songs. So I do play piano a lot and have gotten better. But it kind of all started at once. But even before that, I remember my brother and I had an imitation band called Z and Zag. And I was playing drums on the pipes, and he was playing the basketball. And we would do Beatles songs. We actually rehearsed. So I guess that was actually a musical project.
That is cool. I like that. Playing off each other and creating, and that's what it's all about. What happened from there? What are some of the other breaks that happened along the way for you that are most memorable and really, they opened up the door for you, Paul?
Well, I think part of the break was meeting Steve Goodman, and
it's big, yeah.
But just seeing and the other guys that, this is a real profession. You can really make a career at it. Because when I was going to college, I started college in 1976. They would not even teach songwriting in colleges back in 76. Maybe a crazy college like Berklee School of Music, but no, it's actually a great college. But a regular college it wasn't considered a real profession. It was something like maybe a composer would kind of slip into. But since then, they've added that. But I wanted only to be a songwriter. But I went to Boston University and studied a lot. And, then I went to New York, and I went to New York because John Lennon was just coming out with his first album. It was right when Starting Over was his big hit. And I used to walk by the Dakota every day because John Lennon was there. And then when he got shot, just months after I moved there, it really changed the whole feeling I had for the place. uh, in a huge way. It's just such a tragedy and hard to deal with that I moved to LA. And I just happened to walk into the National Academy of Songwriters, because when you come to LA, there's no guidebook that says, are you a songwriter? Come to, and there exists very little information how you make a living as a songwriter. And I really didn't have a clue. I was so naive about the business, and I learned. But walking in there was helpful because they gave me employment. They hired me to work there, and I learned the business too. And since then, it was just very lucky. I had the idea, like, maybe we could. I was working as the editor of their journal, and I thought, maybe we could interview the great songwriters who donate money to that. It was a nonprofit organization, and they said, you could try. And they said yes. So getting to meet those people and learning that wisdom gave me kind of a career I didn't plan on, but also was just so lucky that I just happened to be there at the right time.
Tell us about that part too, as a prolific music journalist like you are too. How did that come into play where you started, doing the interviewing as well as, writing and publishing and getting into not just playing and performing yourself and maybe collaborating with others, but actually telling the stories in print form? When did that start happening for you?
Not my intention. Like I said, I was an English major.
Yeah.
My father was a journalist, and I never intended to be a journalist. But when I came to Los Angeles, before that, I had in New York for a few months. I worked for the great Marjorie Guthrie, who's Woody Guthrie's wife, and and Arla Guthrie's mom, and also the grandma of Anna Guthrie, Carone, who I just met recently on the phone. But meeting Marjorie was great. And she had all of Woody's archives. So that was kind of like a good place to start. But in LA, I really got a lot of guidance about how you could be a songwriter. And so I just had this hunch, maybe some of these people would say yes. But if they did say yes to doing an interview when I got in Hollywood, the point is that I took the job just because I needed to work. Before I worked writing about it, I was working in a recording studio for a year in Hollywood, which did give me an entire novel because it was right in the middle of Hollywood. And the onyr was a cocaine dealer, which I didn't know right away. But he would do deals literally just across the street with a guy with a sawed-off shotgun on the front, on the roof of our studio while we're working, like doing a gospel record or something, which I tended to think was rather risky and insane, but not boring. But when I just kind of happened into this job, I figured they're giving me this job, and wasn't a lot of pay, but it was regular. And to a musician, every week you're going to pay me. That was great. And it literally was a bike ride from my home in Hollywood. And that was wonderful. So I just thought, maybe if we do get this, it was for what was called Song Talk, which was really a calendar of events originally on newsprint. It opened like the old Rolling Stone, so it had big pages. And so we had a lot of room and very few advertisers. And I was supposed to fill it up, with news about the members, but anything that had to do with songwriting. So I thought, let's interview songwriters, but ask them about songwriting. Because when I was growing up, Paul Simon, who was my idol, or the Beatles, or Bob Dylan, had a new album, they'd get interviewed by Rolling Stone or a few other magazines. And maybe there'd be one question about the process. And to me, that's all I wanted to know. Like, Paul Simon, you look like a regular guy. You look like you could be in my family, but he wrote Bridge Over Troubled Water on a guitar. Now, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And then made it sound and that's what I wanted. I just wanted to hang out with him or any of them, because that's all I cared about. How do you do that?
How do you do that? And he loved your conversations so much with him that he invited you to contribute liner notes to his first box set, Paul Simon, 1964 through 1992, right? And Dan Fogelberg, he also invited you to write his liner notes. And the result is Portrait, the epic history of the man. So some of these folks you've come across have enjoyed it so much, they want you to be a contributor to some of their incredible legendary material, huh?
Yeah, it was a great honor. And have my name on a Paul Simon album. I cared more about those albums than anything. Better than movies. I love movies, they're great books. That was a great honor. But he did appreciate that. I was obsessed, but that I'm a musician, so I knew the fullness of his genius, because a lot of Paul Simon's genius, well, any songwriters, it's the music and the words. And as he called it, the crucial balance, how they go together. You can have a genius melody or a genius lyric, but unless it's perfectly matched, it'll sound bad. And he was just the king of that. So I knew the music too. and it's ingenious, and especially if you're kind of nerdy like I am about music, like just still crazy after all these years. The bridge, how we constructed it, and you would kind of refer to it in interviews, but no one would ever go, "What does that mean exactly?" Wait a second, but what is? And I was like, when you said this, and I could see he enjoyed it. Finally, I get a chance to talk about this. And so many of them, Brian Wilson, Burt Bacharach, that's where their genius lies. It's music.
Yeah.
But to talk about music itself isn't easy. There's not a lot of words. That's why it's so great. It's music. But rarely do they get the chance. And when they do, it's not by someone that does it. Can you hear that siren?
Yeah.
Right in the middle of beautiful Beverly Glen here.
Pizza delivery.
Yeah, I just hope it's not, a great rock star going by, God forbid. But they did like it because, as I said, I know the fullness of it, and I knew what it takes to write a song, and I knew even someone like Tom Petty, he's so popular that people took it for granted. Like, how hard is that? But he worked really hard, and I met him early on in his career, and he's so proud of the work, and they were happy to talk to someone that understood it. Thank you for using that photo.
You and Tom Petty right there, right?
It was taken by the great Henry Diltz, one of my good friends, a great photographer. And Tom was taller than me, and Henry, makes it look like I'm the same size.
I was going to say, yeah. Where was this? What was the occasion for this shot with you and Tom Petty?
This was one of my first interviews. The first one ever was right before Wildflowers came out, I think, about 92 or earlier than that. And he lived in Encino then with his wife, Jane, and his children. And then we did another one right there, and Henry came. And Henry is, a beloved photographer, back to Woodstock. Anytime you show up with Henry, people are in a good mood. And Henry wasn't meant to take my picture. They were there to take Tom's picture for the magazine. But he's such a good guy. He took several of us, and I'm so glad he did. He's done that several times.
That is fantastic.
But the point is, Tom was in such a great mood,
and
he knew I understood. And he also loved that I brought up some of his songs that weren't hits. Yeah. And I think it's really important because the music business and generally the world will judge a songwriter on, well, does he have any hits? And then does any recent hits? You might have had a hit, but it was in the 70s. So now you're a has-been, right? They look down on you. Whereas I think you write one hit, the whole world knows. Even one. Not many people ever do that. It's huge. You understand.
That's huge. Yeah.
So I always came with reverence for that. And a lot of them who wrote hits, they feel kind of bad for those brilliant songs that no one ever talks about. So if you bring one up, as you probably know, they love that. And that really bonded Tom and I. So we just had a good time. And I kept going back. And so I interviewed him several times. And ultimately, we did the whole book together.
And sometimes, those lesser known B-sides are really incredible pieces of music, right?
Absolutely. I mean, what makes a hit, as Paul Simon said many times, isn't necessarily the best work. It's often great, but it's a special song. It can be a hit, a radio hit. And he used to write the kind of strange songs that would become hits. And that doesn't happen in the same way anymore. And these guys, I know they take it personally. I wrote a hit in the 70s. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
And I know a lot of people who are brilliant people, but they judge them by that. That is the judgment. Because they say to me, you write about these people, they never had a hit. Like, why are you writing about them? Because they're great songwriters, and the artistry of songwriting matters to me. So that always helped that I went in, because I don't do that just to butter them up, because they are genius songs. Every one of them has a few it would be way too strange for a hit, but it's an amazing song.
We have a clip here, actually. It's audio, you, and I think it's the collaboration with Art Garfunkel, right? One of those that you had sent. Tell us about that one.
Well, that's one of the best parts of my life right there. So thank you. I met Artie by interviewing him. Like, I met most of these people, and most of the people I met, I made a point of not talking about myself as a musician, because it was about them. But Artie, I got to know him, and I love him. I have so much reverence for him. And frankly, I always had a fantasy of having my own Garfunkel, because I love Paul Simon so much. I always wanted a guy who could sing like that with me. I'd be Simon. And so when I met Garfunkel, we got to know each other. And finally, I started that. Would you consider, I was doing my first solo album, would you consider doing a duet? Because to me, there was no other person that would be a bigger dream for me to do a duet with. Second, maybe David Crosby, because he's such an amazing harmony singer, and I love him. But Artie Garfunkel, and he was kind of resistant at first, and I realized humor doesn't hurt usually. It's not offensive, and
breaks the ice. Yeah,
and he did a show we were doing in Los Angeles, I think, tribute to Jimmy Webb, and so I got to spend time with him, and I said, "Let me ask you, Artie. We were talking about the duet. how hard is it for you to sing with a little Jewish guy named Paul? I mean, think about it. And I was talking about me, of course, and he thought he goes, that's funny. Okay, I'll do it. Because I made a joke. I don't know if you get it, but I'm a Jewish songwriter named Paul as well, though. I think maybe a little taller than Simon, but he liked that. But, he lives in New York. So he said, when I come back to LA, and as you know, people say things a lot, but they don't always do them.
They don't follow up, right?
Not only did he make a point of doing it, he came all the way to the studio, which was in Hollywood. He was probably staying in Beverly Hills. And he could have just come in and just done one chorus, and you could fly it to each chorus and that'd be done. And that would have been great. But he didn't. He spent hours. And I saw how he worked because he learned my part first. So he had the phrasing perfect.
Yeah.
And if you get the phrasing perfect, it sounds... But then he worked on every line. He could have done the same harmony, but every chorus is different. He put his full treatment into it. And that to me, just watching him work, and that it was with my voice to this day. I mean, I love writing, but there's nothing more exciting to me than that. And also, people love him too. So that helped.
Oh yeah.
Bring me to the world. But even if no one else heard it but me, it was a great thrill.
Absolutely. We'll hear that. What is the name of it?
It's called Being in This World.
That's right. All right. It's the audio version, folks. Listen to it. I think you're going to enjoy. And then we will be back with a very special guest, Paul ZOLLO, in just a second.
Prayed the patron saints, his father at the factory. The trees are playing in the manger leaves. It is 1933. His eyes of Virgin Mary blue. He walks along a rifle hole. The snow is falling all around. He's pitching to DiMaggio. Being in this world, being in this world, being in this world. Father's father walked the earth all along the railroad track to sharpen knives from town to town. Whetstone wheels strapped to his back, walnuts in his wrinkled hands, fish lures in his crumpled hat. Pockets all full of sunflower seeds. He was happy with no more than that. To be being in this world, being in this world, being in this world. Everybody in their own time. Everybody in their own space. It takes dreams and prayers and wine to run this human race. His mother had a rosary. His father come home drunk again. They shared each other's company, just like a burro and a hen. His father breaking fates again. His mother quiet in the dark, while all the sons of fishermen wait for his day at Fenway Park. Being in this world, being in this world, being in this world, being in this world, being in this world.
That is fantastic. That is a beautiful song. That
Thank you.
really is. Yeah, I love it. That
I love
is, I
hearing
could,
it.
yeah, isn't it when you hear it back?
Because he's on it. Not everything is like that, but to hear
No,
Artie
but
sing with me is special.
the harmonies, the blending is so ideal between the two of you. The voices complement, you know.
That's because he's really good. He could. We don't have similar voices, but he's a great harmony singer. I mean, he knows how to blend.
Right. Right.
In terms of, I'll give him all the credit. He's one. I think he's maybe the greatest, but one of the greatest harmony singers. But that's part of the art of harmony singing, blending. You know, it's not just
Yes,
but also the part you're singing. And people don't realize when you get it perfect, it just sounds right. But if it's not perfect, the phrasing, it just sounds amateurish. You know?
absolutely.
And he's kind of the king of that.
Marty Thompson's a great singer and entertainer in Nashville, originally from Australia. He goes, "Good day, welcome to the Lovely Hall. Great song. Sammy Kahn and Jimmy Van Heusen and Paul McCartney are my favorite songwriters. Who are some of your favorites, Paul?"
Excuse me for a second. I pulled my
Did you?
my power out. Just one second.
Don't you love the internet? The internet is crazy.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. They got
they
to
used
see
to-
your chair. They were happy because
So my cats, did you say?
that your chair. We
Oh,
have
my
had
chair.
so many guests who have had to get up to do different things that now we've got this whole thing where we see the guest's chair. So I'm going to do an episode, I think, where we just show the guests' chairs and the viewers have to guess which guest sat in that chair.
That's funny.
So Marty was saying, yeah, Sammy Kahn, Jimmy Van Heusen, Paul McCartney is some of his favorites songwriters. Who are some of yours,
Well,
Paul?
I've never heard of those guys, but
Yeah.
in fact, Sammy Kahn, I got to interview, and I love Sammy Kahn, and he was really important because people might not remember. Obviously, Marty remembers, but he wrote, I think, 87 songs. The lyrics for that Sinatra recorded, who was the greatest. But Sammy gave an important lesson. He goes, "I wasn't the greatest songwriter, but I was the fastest," by which he meant that if someone needed it, if Sinatra needed a closing song, he'd have the first one there. That songwriting isn't just being a genius; it's about being aggressive. So I loved him. I growing up, my favorite songwriter is Paul Simon. I was just obsessed with him, but also with the Beatles. I mean, I was right there when they started. I mean, not right there, but I'm hearing it on the radio. I was in America, and Paul Simon, and I love Dylan songs, but really, I didn't really completely appreciate Dylan until I was a little older. I mean, I loved his songs. I love Peter Paul Mary. I loved his songs for other people, but a little later on, I really understood him. I don't really think I understood it, like a lot of people to this day. But Paul Simon, I was just obsessed with. Truly.
What about the Carpenters, Richard and Karen Carpenter?
I wasn't a huge fan. I was so obsessed with songwriters, and I was really
Paul Williams.
Yeah, knowledgeable of Roger Nichols and Paul Williams, who wrote the songs, and those are some beautiful songs. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
But I was always cognizant for some reason of who wrote the songs. I'm so songwriter oriented even back then that I love songwriters. There are many. Laura Nero. I'm sure you remember Laura Nero.
Yeah.
Some, I talk to young people as we say, they don't know the name, but she was so important. And Joni Mitchell. I mean, I have so many really clear memories, like getting a new album of Joni Mitchell, Court and Spark, walking through the snow. I couldn't drive. And just living in that album for weeks, and it changed every album was momentous. Or getting Paul Simon's second solo album on my bike, it was $4.20 going on my bicycle, and getting it and coming home and listening. It was a big deal, So
how about Carole King?
No, absolutely. I mean, like most of the world tapestry was amazing. I didn't know there was anything before that, and I loved Carole King, and and James Taylor. That time was really important. That was right when I started writing songwriting songs. So it was 1970. Good time, because this James Taylor and Carole King, like this beautiful, talk about art, craft and the artistry. Both of them, and the love between them. They weren't lovers. It was a musical connection that was beautiful. And since then, I've gotten to interview both of them. And you mentioned you're near Yale, and I'm very happy that a great writer is working on a Carole King book. And I spoke to her with the Yale University Jewish Lives program, and that should be a great book.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Carole King, absolutely.
Carole King.
There's so many. Randy Newman a little later. Tom Waits to me was huge, and Randy Newman, that came a little later, when I was in high school, but it was like discovering new parts of town you didn't even know about. And Tom Waits, wow. And Randy Newman, in terms of song content, because I was really thinking, what do you write about? And they opened up whole new ideas. And then there were many people that people don't remember that were great or had maybe one album, but
so
those are the main ones.
Do you lean more towards music and songs that have more of an intricate nuance and story to them versus something that may be a little more commercially pop-ish, that is just rhythmic and poppy and people love it and they dance to it, but maybe there isn't as much of a deep story built into it? Do you lean more towards the storytelling side of music?
Not really. I lean towards a great song. I mean, people assume that if you love serious songwriting, you don't like cool, pop
you don't
songs
like the rest, right?
Great, but every now and then there's a pop song I just think is phenomenal, like "Chandelier" by Sia. People are kind of surprised, like, or Billie Eilish, who I've interviewed recently.
Bruno Mars.
Yeah, I mean, that's serious songwriting. Bruno, Billie Eilish, her brother Phineas, I've interviewed them. And every now and then there's new stuff that I just think is great. It's not, in the past, it was much more, the songs on the hit parade were more like my kinds of songs. But I do like really deep and heavy songs, but it's the whole thing. If a song has a really deep, heavy lyric, but it's not fun to listen to, you're not going to listen to it very often. Whereas someone like Leonard Cohen can write 11 verses and it's really deep. And it's great, it's about the music and the words. So
and you mentioned Burt Bacharach, of course, prolific. Those songs still stand the test of time. And even Barry Manilow wrote so much music. I mean, there was just a factory of so many hit after hit after hit with some of these incredible songwriters and performers. Dolly Parton, another one, prolific.
Great songwriter.
Yeah.
And one of the first people to ever say no to the Elvis deal, which is he'll do your song, but and it wasn't his idea, it was the Colonel. His name will be on the song. He'll take half of the songwriting credit. And she had a song called I'll Love You Always, or I'll Always Love You. That was it.
I Will Always Love You.
And she said no. And as you know, it became an enormous hit for Whitney Houston. But she's a great songwriter. I mean, there's so many great songwriters. There's many. But I love a great pop song.
Billy Joel, Neil Diamond, Neil Young, some of these others.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I love all of them a lot.
Yeah.
And I love the songwriters, like Jeff Berry, who wrote, songs that people don't know, like Hanky Panky. I'm really interested by those guys too, who weren't the stars that wrote the songs, and some really famous songs were by those guys too. Yeah. And then there's people like P.F. Sloan, who wrote Eve of Destruction, The Secret Agent Man, who was an incredible performer, but they didn't let him be the artist. But he had a lot of hits, and he became a close friend. And there are a few people like Jules Shear. Do you know that name?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you. He's one of the great songwriters of all time, but he's not. People don't think of that name. But to this day, every album by him, I get it. It's like, I feel like Jules. Didn't anyone say it doesn't have to be this good? He's just writing great stuff. Bacharach, I found out, is still working. I talked to J.D. Souther yesterday. He's working with Bacharach. And Bacharach is still working. It's
doing it.
It's amazing. But
Carole Sayer too. Carole Sayer. Yeah, she's another one. Prolific. Yeah, these names. As far as you with songwriting, do you write a song sometimes with another singer in mind? Meaning that voice, I can envision that voice being the voice that will take that song to new levels. I know some people, they write with the singer already in mind.
Oh yeah, like Diane Warren is a genius at targeting songs. She's really good at that. That's a whole art in itself. Generally, my songs were written for me as an artist. Occasionally I'll write lyrics for other artists. And that's really, when you do that, it has to be a lyric they want to sing. I've worked with Daryl Purpose, is a brilliant songwriter. But he's the singer on those songs. And if he doesn't like the topic, that's fine. So that's kind of that. But after I would write a song, I'd start to think, boy, I mean, when I was growing up, one of my dreams was Bette Midler singing one of my songs. I just loved her singing, you know. And
yeah,
there's just Cyndi Lauper. I would have loved her to sing one of my songs. She's a wonderful singer, and there's a lot of those people.
We had Amanda McBroom on recently, who wrote The Rose, which then Bette Midler took to a whole other level.
You know, that changed Amanda McBroom's life. I mean,
yes, forever.
Bette Midler singing that turned that into a standard. You know, that's a good thing for a songwriter. That's a beautiful song too.
Right, and then everybody else wants to cover it, and it takes a life of its own. We have you doing another song here, and then you're going to perform live for us too. This is Naomi. Tell us about this one.
Okay, you know, often I like to write songs a lot, and sometimes you don't have a new song ready going. So I've come up with various ways of kind of generating a new song. And I read a lot, and I love poetry, and I'm a big Allen Ginsberg fan. And he wrote Kaddish, which was for his mother, Naomi, who, when he was in San Francisco, was back in New York, and she was old and she was dying, and he was worried that she would die and he wouldn't be there to say Kaddish, which is the Jewish prayer for the dead. But he wrote this beautiful, inspired poem. And sometimes I think it's good to write something away from my life, because if you get too entrenched in your own life and stuff, it could get emotional. And I believe writing songs for fun. Just write something interesting. So I wrote a song called Naomi, which is his mother's name, using some of his language, but the idea. But the main reason I did, I was thinking, this is outside of my life. I don't even have to get emotionally involved. And then I realized my mother, I'm also Jewish. My mother's in Chicago. She's very elderly. I'm in California. I mean, it was a lot closer than it's so obvious, but she could pass away and I won't be there probably. It was even worse than that. It happened during lockdown, so I couldn't even be at her funeral. And it's odd that I would write this whole song about that, but it's also about being Jewish and you know, in America and all the whole experience of that. You know, that's yeah. Can we edit that? That was a little long.
It was perfect, very eloquent. It's a great preface to Naomi. Let's take a look at that right now again with the incredible All ZOLLO.
This time, is everyone ready now? Okay. Battlements of buildings on 7th Avenue. Klezmer clarinets, ancient voices sing to you. Ghosts with derringers and bows forever taking aim. Fire escapes as old as God, know your Hebrew. Like the saxophone refrain of sun on melting snow. Echoes of electric shocks from 8,000 years ago. All of the accumulations of life that wear us down, our bodies and our clocks, our taxi cabs to Orange Town. Naomi, still crying all night long. Naomi, this is your Kaddish song. Old Cadillacs and Hudsons, our mamas love to cry. Old catatonic ladies, as gray as charcoal ash. You stared out of the window to the Broadway church below. Over mystical assassins like shadows on the snow. The old road to Bayonne, the old soda factory. Conspirators from Newark, caught up in conspiracy. Hordes of New Jersey Indians wood. Communists and spies still infiltrate our neighborhood. Naomi, still crying all night long. Naomi, this is your cottage song. Lobotomies and wrinkles, Coca-Cola mixed with rum. She calls out to him in Hebrew. She knows he will always come. But he's in San Francisco, 1,000 miles away. And Naomi's left alone with God on a diet. Naomi is shrunken in your bones, sunken in your skin, falling without wings into the strings of your mandolin. From the synagogues of Brooklyn out to Long Island Sound, all of the archangels ascended to catch the last round. Naomi, still crying all night long. Naomi, this is your cottage, this is your cottage song.
That's fantastic. That is really fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Claps, claps, and bravo, bravo, and a lot of comments coming in here from people who are enjoying it as well.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, that's a great venue there, huh?
That is my good friend Jeff Gold's music store, but West Valley Music. But he has concerts there about once a month. He had to stop because of lockdown, but they're coming back. And there are certain places here in LA where you can, people want to hear music and they listen, and that's one of the great ones.
Tell us about your involvement as senior editor of American Songwriter. How did that come about? That's and a few other things that you're involved in too, in addition to that. Tell us about some of that people might not be aware of, my friend.
As I mentioned, I started at Song Talk. It was the National Academy of Songwriters. It wasn't really considered a real publication, but I just kept doing it enough that people took it seriously. But when the Academy, unfortunately, had to stop, I went on. My next big job was Performing Songwriter magazine, which was a magazine that really looked great, but kind of based on ours, which was pretty inexpensive to print. And so I was there, and then from there I went to American Songwriter. It's a Nashville magazine, especially at the time. It was really about country music to start, but they were changing. It was going through ownership, so I've been there a long time, but it's only recently in the last more than a year that I've been senior editor, but they've really given me a wonderful opportunity to really publish what I want. They just want me to keep going, and now more than ever, with the internet, you could really connect with songwriters in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of songwriters hungry for real information, and there's so much misinformation. We could have had just brilliance and nothing but genius with the internet and good knowledge, but there's much more that just gets in the way, and especially with songwriting. A lot of people is making money off of exploiting songwriters. Like, here's how you write a great song. You don't have to learn an instrument. Just do it today. That kind of thing. So it was really about preserving the artistry of songwriting, and it was very songwriter oriented. And now there's new ownership and a real infusion of energy. It's exciting. And a lot of people in a lot of different cities and are online. AmericanSongwriter.com is, it was just an adjunct at first, like most websites. Now it's a really happening, exciting thing. And I love the opportunity. It's I grew up in magazines. I was there for a long time, and I've been doing this for 30 years. It's a different world. You write for a magazine, you got a long time. You send it to them, and after a while it comes out. This is immediate, and you can make mistakes or you can fix them. But to have that immediate response too is great. And also it's been a revelation to me to realize there's people that I didn't think anyone cared about anymore that I love, like Dan Fogelberg. And they have a huge amount of fans, so they're especially grateful. So it's been really exciting to get to, really connect with the fans of these people, and they're grateful, because I I like to go right to the person, like you do, and they have conversations and really talk
Right.
about them. And for that reason, I got the real stories behind songs and the real information. And so I've been in a real lucky position. And now with American Songwriter, as long as I can stay there, it's really a dream job for me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I get to do it out of my home. I used to have to go to an office, and it's pretty great.
That is really, really cool. And of course, there's this too that people should be aware of. Tell us about that. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, you're great. You even show the title. I mean, the cover. You can judge some books by the title, the cover.
Yeah.
But what this is almost immediately when I started doing interviews with people, my first one was Frank Zappa. Like you, I try to get real conversations, because if you're good at what you do, you can listen to the person, and you can still get, as you know well, you can still get to your basic questions, but you do it in a way that's that's compelling, because it's a real conversation. You follow the person.
It's a thread.
And I was really interested, and I had nothing but time. It wasn't a radio show. You could have dead air in a regular, for print, it doesn't matter. So immediately, my first interview was Frank Zappa, and it was fascinating, brought in his home, and just went on from there. But also old timers like Livingston and Evans, who wrote Silver Bells or Que Sera, Sera. And immediately I thought this would be a good book, and someday. And within a few years, I started pitching it as a book, and the first version of that was with Writer's Digest books, a whole different version, kind of looked like a coloring book. It wasn't great, but that was before I even got my Dylan interview, and so that went out of print, and I thought, God, I hope this has another life. And I was so lucky to hook up with DeCapo Press, who like to find books that other publishers have let go that can be great, and they were the ones that made it big. It was just a little book, but not only that, they brought it to colleges. Like I said, colleges didn't used to teach songwriting. So now they do, starting with USC and Chris Sampson and great people like that. But they needed some literature, some text. And my book got to be the textbook, because I just happened to talk to songwriters on songwriting. Wasn't intended as that, but that was so lucky for me, because the book stayed alive. Most books don't stay alive. It's been 25 years. And then I got to do a sequel. Is this a sequel? Yeah, here it is. Just happened to have this one here, which is called More Songwriters on Songwriting. And it matches. There's a new version that matches this one, but in different colors. But I just feel so lucky. And also, I love to have these interviews. They were in magazines, but they have them in a book. They're not going to fall out. And it's been so beautiful for me that, because it's been used as text, the word is gradually spread. So even in Nashville, I find out almost every recording studio has that. I didn't know if in Nashville I would get any credibility. And, it's been really wonderful. And I get to talk to the greatest songwriters. And a lot of them already know, like, this guy's not going to waste your time. So it's been a wonderful journey. It was never the intention, but it's been great.
That's amazing.
Been lucky.
Yeah. Blessed, right? And you're doing what you love, and you love what you do, and it connects with people. It's tough to top that, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah. And as you probably know, this business of show, not an easy way to make a regular living. But if you do get to do it, and you're pure, it is a real blessing. And to me, it's still kind of astounding to meet anyone who's written a famous song. I've never lost my awe. It's like, wow. So it's been great.
The awe factor. Yeah. Look at this shot. This is Carole King, right?
And her beautiful daughter, Louise Goffin. That was lucky, because Louise is a good friend, and we were doing a podcast for a while. Look how tall I look. I love posing with them. But, we were doing a lot
cool
of
hat too. Is that the same hat?
No, it's a different hat. Carole, her mom said she liked the hat. That meant a lot to me. Carole King likes my hat. But we didn't ask Carole to do one, because she doesn't like to do interviews. She doesn't do any, as you probably know. She doesn't participate. She lives in Idaho. But we did a lot. And it was the very thing that you were talking about. She said to Louise, these aren't interviews. These are conversations. Could I do one? It's like, we'll see if we could fit you in. No, we were so thrilled. Louise wasn't even going to ask her, because Carole hates doing those. And she wanted to talk, and then she did 5 hours. She had a lot to say, and she was at the piano. So that was great. I never saw that coming. That was really wonderful.
Got another hat here too. Who is this? Yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah, that was a good hat. That was like a Dylan hat. I did have white face on that. I didn't just look at that.
Here's another. Look at that one.
Oh, with my son Joshi, who is even taller than that now. He's 21. He's taller. He's taller than I am. But I used to be able to dress him in anything. That's my big band in Pasadena. That was when my last album came out. Great musicians. Earl Grey and Eduardo Tancredi and Billy Salisbury. Just wonderful people.
Wow. You're still working with them?
Oh yeah, luckily. I mean, as we during the lockdown, you couldn't work really, but now
Yeah.
we're working together again, and it's great. I'm working with Barry Keenan, a wonderful musician, and there's so many wonderful musicians in town, and I love getting to play my music with great musicians, like any songwriter.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. And that's the key to it all. I mean, when you get a chance to do that, obviously you love it, and some magical things happen, especially when you're jamming, right? When you just there's no rhyme or reason. You're just doing it, and then incredible stuff can develop, right?
Yes, and I didn't realize going in just how important that is, because if you don't have a good drummer, it's never going to sound good. It'll sound terrible. I always thought, what am I doing wrong? And someone said, maybe you should get a good drummer. And they played and said, oh, it makes a huge, because everyone else is solid if the drummer is. And it's like, there's many like that kind of obvious lessons, but no one tells you that till you know. But you learn them because you hear how terrible it sounds if you don't do that.
Yeah.
But people might not. They think LA people might be shallow or whatever. But there's so many really talented, great musicians here, and really the songwriting circle community is really a generous, beautiful place. I mean, we're not angels, and there's a few that are really not angels, but generally there's wonderful people that I've known for decades, and it's great here.
You've got a beautiful piano to the left of you there. You're going to perform a little bit for us too as well, right? Tell us about that fantastic piano we see.
Oh, I love the questions you ask.
Thank you.
Because I just moved in here, and this piano was in my other home. There it is. Can we see that? Okay. And I was just thinking, I got to move it here. I'm in Beverly Glen now, and it was really easy. You hire someone, they moved it here really quick. It's so great to have it in my home, and I love the piano. It's the greatest form of meditation for me to sit at a piano. I was without it for about a year, and I started renting that when I was in my 20s from the Hollywood Piano Rental Company for like $20 a month or something. And they let me know, by the way, for a few $100s, you could own that if you wanted. So really, I didn't know that.
Wow.
And I was in a tiny little guest house then in Hollywood. It was like half of the guest house, but I put it in and had it ever since. And it's, I've written so many songs on it, just brilliant songs. But also for the first time in more than 20 years, I had it tuned. Makes a real difference.
That makes a huge difference.
Huge.
For the piano, the guitar, the car, and your body. To get those tuned, it's really important.
And any fellow musicians who might come here and go, ZOLLO. But I was a daddy, and he had a lot more priorities than tuning the piano for a while there.
Definitely. Always priority. You want to play something for us too, right?
Sure, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, we would love it. What would you like to do?
Oh, great. Well, just happen to have my guitar right here.
I like the way that glass of water you have it placed there. It's like a fancy ornament.
It looks pretty good on camera.
It's really cool. The glass and everything with the water.
I used to do public access TV, like Wayne's
So you
World.
know where to put all the fake rubber plants and everything, right?
we spent a lot of time with that.
If public access, they would, which is not public television. Some people, when they hear public access, they think of PBS.
There's a big difference.
Big difference. Public access is like your local cable company, and I've done a lot of that over the years too. But they would always have the fern plant.
Yes.
2 chairs and a table and
a lot of fake. Yes.
Plants.
A lot of. Yes. I'm just trying to get I had the lyric here. Excuse me just for a second.
And what is this song?
Let's see. See if I can get it first before I promise.
Yeah, before you promise, right?
Actual gigs, we'd have to, be more prepared.
You have somebody else that would do that for you, right?
Or you would just, get your stuff to you. You wouldn't be like going through your computer, on stage. We'd actually could print out lyrics just in case. I was going to just do, which you should if you're a pro, do songs really well, but I get really excited about new ones. This is a pretty new one, and I wrote this kind of with Marvin Etzioni, who's a great songwriter and a good friend. But when I say kind of, he didn't write it with me. It was based on a few lines he sent, which I actually thought was kind of an invitation for me to write a song, and it wasn't really, but I wrote a whole song. So I think officially the credit is like based on a few lines by Marvin Etzioni. He was in Load and Justice and just a genius songwriter, and the only songwriter I've ever known. Occasionally a songwriter will dream a whole song. It's rare. Yeah. McCartney dreamt the melody for Yesterday. Marvin dreams songs every night, and has trained himself to get up, and because it's the hardest part is preserving the song because you want to go back to sleep, and that's just he's connected in a way most people aren't. So this was based on, like, he just sent me these lines: picking up a dime, heads up, good luck, picking up a dime, thinking about love. And I thought, that's a song. And so I wrote a whole song based on that, on a Marvin Etzioni poem. So this is I then titled, but like the prop here.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you. My title is Love in Modern Times.
Love in Modern Times. All right. Here's Paul Zollo.
Thank you. And thank you, Marvin, for giving me this start. And I hope you're happy with it. The other funny thing about this is I found a verse that I edited out for some reason. And I don't know if the other songwriters have done it. It's better than all the other verses. Why would I edit that out?
It's amazing how that happens.
Yeah, I was lucky. Just today I found it. It's like, wow, that's great. So I put that back in. So this is called Love in Modern Times.
Okay.
Picking up a dime, heads up, good luck. Picking up a dime, thinking about love, thinking about love, love, luminous love, shining like a brand new dime. Love, love in modern times. Climbing through the snow up to the sky. Always say hello, never goodbye. Never say goodbye, goodbye. Fireflies among the porcupines. Love, love in modern times. Can there be love? Love, love in modern times. I'm gonna go down. I'm sorry. This is not gonna cooperate. Good, there we go. Blue coyote grass and the daffodils. The Cahuenga path goes through these hills. We're going through these hills and these barrios where once we were entwined. Love, love in modern times. Can there be love? Love, love in modern times. Driving through the glen up to the sky, the Beatles once again. Hello, goodbye. Hello, goodbye to all the ones who imagine love to these eternal rhymes. Love, love in modern times. Can there be love? Love, love, love in modern times. Love in modern times.
Really nice. That's a beautiful song.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I scrolled.
Yeah. Welcome to the new world of the crazy internet. What was some more of the inspiration for that particular song? It was really fantastic, Paul.
Thank you very much. I've never played it for more than one person, I don't think.
Really?
And Marvin's heard it. But
thank you for doing that on our show. We appreciate that.
Thank you. The inspiration was Marvin. I was so inspired by the guy because he's a pure songwriter, like Tom Petty. There are people, they're writing songs because they love songwriting and they're great songwriters, but it's pure. There's no secret motives. And the whole idea of just picking up a dime, thinking about love. I love you. Marvin's really good at what I consider in other great songwriters, a kind of gestalt songwriting where you just give enough that the person fills in the rest. John Prine was a genius. And that's an art of songwriting that is really beautiful. And just that, I mean, it's not obvious, picking up a dime, thinking about love. What does that mean? but it just gives you something beyond words that's so beautiful. So I was inspired by this guy's dream songs all the time. And also that the Beatles verse came at the end. That's the one I discovered. And Lennon and Yoko, who I love very much,
Yeah.
we're all about, we can't have peace until we can at least imagine peace, or at least, just give peace a chance. So I always think about imagining. So that last part about the ones who imagine love, because that's where it starts. You got to imagine it first. So like always inspired by Lennon as well.
Mm. You have another song you want to share with us too, right, Paul?
Sure. I love getting to sing. Thank you. And I love getting to be a journalist, and it's been an honor, but music is more fun, to get
But
to sing music.
is
And
what speaks to your heart. Yes.
yeah. And as you know, there's such a glut of music now. There's a million CDs. When we were growing up, if someone did an album, it was because they were, they should be doing an album, and so it's tough these days sometimes for songwriters even to get heard. So I appreciate this a lot.
That's why a lot of people are doing the independent route and everything else, because the whole deal has changed.
Right. But even that can be, because there's so many people, and people know who should we listen to. And it's a different world. As you know, it used to be about getting on the radio. Now it's really, can you get placement on TV shows or movies?
Yeah.
That's really what's going to make some serious road and career. So it's a different world, but it's kind of interesting to me that they haven't come up with like something better than a song or a new kind of song. I mean, it is a new kind of song, but the songs still matter, I think, is really wonderful even in these times.
Absolutely.
Okay, then. Okay, I'll do this one. Like a lot of songwriters, always like, well, what song am I going to do? Because they're all so great. But
and they're all available at.
yeah. And actually, aren't all so great. There's a lot that don't make it. Even now, I found myself that these songs aren't as great as those, but give them a chance. Songwriters, unless they do the song will never be heard. At least make one YouTube. So I'm giving even some of the old ones that I casted out a new chance. Even Tom Petty said that to me. Some of his songs, he thought they were terrible. He goes, they're not so bad.
No. When you hear them again and again. Right.
This song was written for the daughter of a person I knew, and the daughter was having a real hard time and just wanted to be left alone. And she had a very beautiful pet that she loved. She was named Echo. I just want to be with Echo. I don't even want to identify what kind of pet in case people hate that kind of pet. I don't like this one. So, but it just meant so much to me. And also, I'm Jewish, as I've probably mentioned several times already. But she was a Christian, or sort of. So the song, like a lot of songs, there's part of it could be about Jesus, and that's okay, because I know that was important to her. But it's called "An Echo in the Sun," and since then there's been, Andy Slater's movie "Echo in the Canyon" about Laurel Canyon, and I don't want people to get confused. This was written before that, and it's not about that. Also, when I was starting, they didn't have automatic tuners. That would have been heaven for me, because that's terrible at tuning on stage. It's not easy.
Yeah. Not to be confused with auto-tune.
Right. There's a big difference.
That's a whole other world.
So I love that you talked to musicians. I love that you had the Pointer Sisters on. You had two of them.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Melissa Manchester too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just always remember doing a show with the Pointer Sisters years ago when they were coming, the three of them, to sing one medley, and live. The three sisters, and each of them brought a rack of clothes for one song. Yeah. And I just didn't get. And I asked, why do they each need a rack? And they go, "You're a man, you can't understand."
I love that. Yeah.
You don't decide until it's time to go.
They're amazing.
Okay, so this is called "Echo in the Sun."
Echo in the Sun.
Yes. It's for Katie. I don't want to answer the telephone. No, I don't want to talk to anyone. All I want to do is to be left alone, just to be with that cold in the sun. I don't live where there's nobody home. I don't want to be bad. All I want to do is be left alone, to be with Echo in the sun, just to be with Echo. just to be with Echo, just to be with Echo in the sun, just to be with Echo in the sun. Echo in the sun, sun in the sun. I don't want to live in the twilight zone. I don't need to know about the smoking gun. All I want to do is be left alone, to be with Echo in the sun, just to be with Echo, just to be with Echo, just to be with Echo in the sun, just to be with Echo in the sun, 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 Echo in the sun, 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 sun. Once we learn to crawl together, we will rise and fall forever. Of all the illusions that God ever gave me, I know you're the only one who's always there to save me. I don't want to live where nobody's home. No, I don't want to die in a hit and run. All I want to do is be left alone, to be with Echo in the sun, to be with Echo, just to be with Echo, just to be with Echo in the sun, just to be with Echo in the sun. Echo in the sun, 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 sun.
Really, really nice. That is
Thank you,
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time I think I've ever seen that live, and
Really?
it's nice. So thank you very much. And once you do sing a song live, you never have to do that again. It's in the world, so it's a nice
now
feeling.
it's archived here on the Jim Master Show Live. Absolutely, with all the levity surrounding us, which is amazing. Christine Clifton in North Carolina saying, "Nice style, Paul. Great voice." And Merlin in Ontario,
Thank you.
Canada. Thank you. And Jane, who's watching in Sweden, love this lyric and the melody. Juanita in South Africa is loving it as well. And Jane also loves the cat that they're seeing occasionally behind you.
I love Jane. Jane from Sweden. I love that.
Jane from Sweden.
There's a Swedish women watching. That's beautiful.
Yes.
And she noticed my kitties. There's two. There's Charlie and Farley. And
are they around? The one was on top of the piano.
I just see one. Yeah, that was Farley. He's up there a lot. And it was nice. Charlie showed up while I was singing this. Like, yeah, this is kind of about me, isn't it? And in a way it is. But
you've got a cat like decoration behind you, and there's a glove behind you on the wall too, or a mitten.
Oh, that is that? Yeah, that's our art piece. I have a lot of art. In fact, there's tons of it. I don't know where to put it all. Hey, he's like, hey, wait, they're talking about me? Hey, yeah. I'll go on camera. He just showed up.
Oh, yeah, they're asking about him.
Jane in Sweden is asking about you.
Jane in Sweden's asking.
This is Farley ZOLLO. It's actually named after Farley Granger, though my son thinks no, it's Chris Farley, who I do love too, but I love Farley Granger. That's Farley.
How old?
He is just over a year old. They were born in the middle of lockdown, and all the shelters here were closed, and there were great women in Laurel Canyon rescuing cats and begging people. And I wanted one, but they said any way you could take both because they're brothers, and I did, and I'm glad because they're wonderful.
That is fantastic. That's unconditional love, isn't it?
It is, and I've always loved cats, and I really feel that they bring good energy, and especially if you need to rest, much better than Ambien or something. If you got a cat, it really is. But
Exactly.
just to have people around the world, when I was growing up, I like you probably, though I'm probably older. You needed like a ham radio, with like giant antennas to talk to
Short
someone.
wave to hear all the countries. And
Even a long distance call, but Chicago to LA costs a lot, so it's a big deal. But so to have people in Africa and Sweden, that's just remarkable and great.
all over the world.
And live too.
And live, they're religiously with us. That's why they're the Lovedies. They're with us all the time, come rain or shine, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Community we've created.
I was thinking, we need the Lovedies song, and I think you had a couple lyrics there that kind of rhymed.
Exactly.
Being a songwriter, I said, well, what rhymes with Lovedy? But we'll figure it out.
So you have another song you want to share with us, right? I mentioned we got some great music. What
if we have time?
Oh, we have time. What would you like to do next, my friend?
Well, I'd like to tell Jane. There was a boy from Sweden that came to Chicago and to our school, Lars Stolpe, and I became friends. And he would always have triple-decker sandwiches. Back then, when I was growing up, just to meet someone from Cincinnati, it was huge.
Yeah,
it's another state, but I always loved Lars, and so I have a fondness for Sweden. But
I want to let people know too that they might not be aware of, anybody that's flown on United Airlines, that you produce the center stage and songwriter channel for United Airlines in-flight audio 97 to 99, featuring conversations and performances with Tom Petty, Randy Newman, Graham Nash, and more. What was that like?
That's funny. Yeah, that was back when Clinton was president, and they had it in Air Force One. And I don't know if he ever actually listened, but maybe he did. I was like, maybe Bill's listening. But it was friends of mine said, we're producing these for United Airlines. You interested in doing any interviews? Is there pay? Yeah, sure. Anything like that. And it was a great studio. And but part of it always is like, okay, but can you get them to come? There's always that. But they said yes, and it was a show. There were two shows, one where I talked to songwriters like this, but then the bigger one, Center Stage, where they get big stars. And Tom Petty did that one and a few. But others, like Randy Newman, came to our little studio, and it was fun because songwriters, when they talk to me, they often play music, but for print, you can't use that in any way.
No.
Plays. But so then Randy would talk, and show songs, and it was fun. But it was a lot of pressure too, with the people, what you could say. And like certain songwriters to me were great. And they go, really? That's the best you could do? It was like, I'm not a booker of talent.
Right, exactly. And they want it done quickly, and we got to move, and right, exactly. And sometimes you want to take a little time to finesse the song or the material. When you are rushed, you lose the ability to really do that, because you got to bang it out and you got to get it out to everybody.
Right.
Something else. Yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, you've also contributed writing to the annual Grammy Awards for many years, and for their website for the Grammys, and also several documentaries too, including Legends of the Canyon, Jimi Hendrix, guitar hero, Jim Morrison, rock poet, all directed by John Brewer. Those are amazing experiences too, and plus the affiliation with the Grammys, huh?
They are. The Grammys I've been doing for a long time. And it's funny because I'm a songwriting guy, so I always write about the Song of the Year nominees. Used to be 5 nominees, and it used to be maybe 2 per song. Now it's 8 nominees and maybe 10 per song. But when I started, they were music I loved and people I knew well, and the business obviously has changed. And but I'm still writing about it, and I'm pretending to be hip. It's like, oh yeah, I know all about all these. But several of the artists I learned. I mean, even Billie Eilish, I'll admit, I didn't really appreciate her till then, and then I really, that's pretty impressive. They did all that, and they won all the awards, and their kids still living at home. I mean, it was unbelievable, but it's great music. I really,
absolutely. I love this camera angle that you've got.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's cool. It's very,
good.
very cool. We're right there at key level, which is nice.
Yeah, I like that.
That is a beautiful piano. I love pianos. Yeah,
very old. It's over 100 years old now. It's called an upright grand.
That's the upright. Yeah.
And you can hear it okay. Well,
my father lived a couple of blocks in New York City. They grew up in New York City, in Astoria. Right around the block is where Steinway made all the pianos, the Steinway pianos.
Is that right?
Yeah,
That must have been a
on
big place because those are
Steinway
giant
Street.
pianos.
Steinway
Is that
Street
right?
is yeah.
I'm still learning this about American pianos. The guy who tuned mine, Mark Mandel, was telling me, but those are huge. Steinway grands.
Oh,
It's a
and
real art.
they cost a few bucks. Yeah.
And when everyone used to have pianos in every home. It's common, and it's a beautiful thing. And Billie Eilish's and Phineas's parents had pianos, and she even said, "Yeah, I think Billie said to me, dude, everyone should have a piano." So I'm happy to have it. And as I said, in tune. It was out of tune so long that I thought it sounded normal, but but now I hear it in tunes like that is way better.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. What are you going to play for us now, my friend?
I'm going to play a song called Orange Raincoat, and I hope I don't mess up the lyrics, but if I do, I'll just pretend like it's right. But this is one of many songs I wrote with Daryl Purpose, who's a wonderful songwriter. He wrote the music, and I wrote the words, and it's one of my favorite songs, and it was inspired by this guy somewhat, John Prine again.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up in Chicago, I don't know if you see it, but growing up in Chicago, he's a real hero. He has a very beautiful song called Blue Umbrella.
Yeah, we just lost him recently. Yeah.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
Well, I think was COVID related too, I think, right?
It was. He had gone through a lot. And I got to know each other. I was working on a movie about him that we shot interviews with everyone, even Springsteen, about John Prine, and Tom Waits even. But that movie is on the shelf still. But
who is also a great songwriter too? Mel Tormey.
Yeah, he wrote that. He wrote that Christmas song. Didn't he?
Chestnuts Roasting on the Fire and a lot of others. Yeah,
that's a great song.
I've always been fascinated when we've known the singer or the artist first, and then you're like, my God, that person who we know for that song wrote all these other songs and all these other songs for so many other people. And you never really knew that it was so-and-so that wrote it or so-and-so, because you're always thinking of the performer. And then you learn the backstory if you take time to investigate, which I always love. And you're surprised, like, wow, she wrote that and that and that, and he wrote that, and you have all these different people that have performed all these songs. And it's the one person that penned all of that material. Isn't it? I know you find that fascinating. So do I.
And I find that there's more confusion now about that than ever. People just assume Rihanna sang it. She must have written it.
She must have written it, right?
And then they think, if you're not the artist, you're not a real songwriter. There's all this misinformation,
right?
But one of the great examples of that is Carole King, who wrote a lot of hits long before she became a performer,
right?
And the way she really became, put out there in a big way, besides doing a great album produced by Lou Adler with all those great songs, was James Taylor, who said to his audience, "You might know these songs," and listed her famous songs up on the roof. Will You Love Me Tomorrow? Here's the woman that wrote all those songs.
Yeah.
And she said that changed her life, but that he did that. And it's often been songwriters who do that for other songwriters, And but people to this day, they don't get it sometimes. They hear a hit.
Yeah. Merlin also mentioned Willie Nelson. That's another, who wrote so much music too.
Yeah. I mean, there's many great, really genius country writers who we didn't mention, Merle Haggard, and Townes Van Zandt, and great people. And then there's people no one ever heard of. Michael Smith from Chicago, as great as John Prine or any of them. And the people that know him, just yesterday I got a thing of like, thank God you wrote about Michael. He's a genius. But if the world doesn't hear the songs, they don't hear them, and the songs don't get heard. But there are some people out there just writing amazing songs. Yeah. And I'm sure there's some really great famous ones we haven't even mentioned. Chrissy Hynde, The Pretenders. I love Chrissy Hynde. The Clash, Michael Jackson, Prince. I mean, I loved him. I love everybody, but I love those guys.
Those are the standouts.
I tried really hard to get a Prince interview. I even went right up to him and he goes, "Hey, I dig it, but no." But I tried at least.
Doesn't do them right, exactly. Some people, actors and others, it's not their thing, right?
Right. He wouldn't do them.
No autographs, nothing, right? Yeah.
And a lot of songwriters were resistant, but like Dylan. But when he saw, he's doing actual interviews about songwriting, he would do it. But others, like Michael Jackson, I could just never get through that. They would even laugh. Yeah. We like that you keep asking, but no.
I was able to do Judy Collins and Aaron Neville as well, and Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Thank you. I just talked to Paul. His real name is Noel Stuckey, but just recently,
that's right?
Because I have my
still up in Maine, right? Does he still up in?
That's right. I have my finger on the pulse of what the kids talk about. Again, Paul. But to me, when we were kids, Peter, Paul, and Mary had #1 hits. To me, they were as big as the Beatles, and they introduced Dylan, Judy Collins too. I love, but these people were the ones that introduced the world to great songwriters. Judy Collins with Leonard Cohen and Joni Mitchell recorded their songs first. So I was in love with Judy Collins growing up. I just thought she was so beautiful too.
She still is,
She is.
absolutely. Yeah.
And that voice. She was one. I had a real dream of maybe I could get Judy Collins to sing one of my songs.
Oh.
Yeah, and I tried. I even knew her. I tried. I had a song, but
I had interviewed her on television, and it was funny. She looked angelic in the studio. She was in a all white pantsuit, and her hair was that beautiful white color, and her eyes was sparkling, like blue, green, hazelish, just really beautiful. And she was sat at the piano, and we did the interviews. And I said, Judy, you look so angelic tonight. And she goes, ha, 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 little do you know.
that's
Because they roomed with Bob Dylan, and everybody sort of roomed together, and all those crazy times in the past, in the 60s and all.
that's beautiful. And they're so humble too. You know, when I met
Very
Michael
much so.
McDonald last time, I said, you know, your voice is unlike any other. He goes, when it's good, you know, when I got it, they're all really aware of when they don't have it, you know, and that it's limited their powers. But it's great that you get to meet people like that too, because it's magical, you know, what they've done to our lives.
Absolutely.
And you obviously get us. I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. You're going to do something to our lives right now. What are you going to do for us?
So this is called Orange Raincoat, written by me and Daryl Purpose. It's on one of his many albums. I can't remember all the names of the albums, but
isn't that a great last name? Purpose.
Yeah, Daryl Purpose.
That's a great last name.
When I first met him, I'd make jokes about it, and he hated those jokes. You know, now I know the purpose of life. He said, Paul.
I was going to say, so this song has a purpose?
He's the guy with a purpose too. He's just this amazing, a great melodist, and I will often write really unusual, like dark or strange lyrics, and he's so good he could take those and make them singable. You know, often, and he's great. And the thing about John Prine I wanted to mention was, so he has a song called Blue Umbrella, like it's the main symbol of the song. And this song does what I consider an homage to John Prine, that I'm just an orange raincoat in a blue umbrella town. But when I got to know John's manager, I mentioned, I did this homage and mentioned blue umbrella town. And Al Bunetta, an old-fashioned manager, said, that's not an homage, that's called a ripoff, Paul. And if you use that, you can pay us for that.
That's it, right? I think Bob reminds me when Bob Hope was doing a special with Lucille Ball, and one of the things that he said when he welcomed her on stage was, and I Love Lucy is playing like all over the world. You know, there isn't an hour of the day where I Love Lucy reruns are not airing somewhere all over the world. And she goes, well, if they are, they're not paying for them.
She's a funny lady.
Oh, Lucy, yeah.
I love that you mentioned these names. I mean, when I grew up, Lucy was probably the biggest star to me because we saw I Love Lucy every day.
Yeah.
But the second being Dick Van Dyke. I was in love with to this day.
I still do. He's an interview. Actually, I got this close for a PBS special. And I was this close, but something changed last minute. I was going to be flown out to LA and to interview him a couple of years back, but it was his 90th birthday and he got called away to Disneyland because Disneyland was doing a whole epic celebration for his birthday. But he's somebody that has always been on my radar. I just love everything about him. He reminds me a little of Sammy Davis Jr. in terms of the ultimate performer. Sammy Davis Jr. was like the ultimate sing, dance, act, all of it. And Dick Van Dyke as well can sing and act and dance and all of it, perform and such a
charming way,
and warm and charming and charismatic.
He was just my favorite guy growing up, and I just I've interviewed or photographed a lot of great people, but he was the number one. And Dick finally, he was doing an event it was actually for Barbara Bain.
95 now too.
Barbara Bain was getting her start in Hollywood Boulevard, and I got into that, and but he was there, and I just had to tell him, you're the greatest star of my childhood. I think it was one of the rare times I just really gushed, and I was probably more excited, than ever. But since then, I found so many people who was, even Dana Carvey was saying Dick Van Dyke was the guy.
Love Dick Van Dyke. You know who else was great too? George Burns.
Oh, I thought it was a person. He was great. That was really cool how he walked into the. It looked very real.
Yeah, he's got the cigar and everything. Yeah,
makes me happy. A lot of that. These are big people in our lives, and a lot of them are forgotten.
Yeah.
But there was a George Burns Way at Cedar Sinai here that I passed, and there's one for Gracie too.
There's one for Gracie as well.
But all those stars, I mean, to me, meeting the music stars was great. But anytime I could meet one of those, I met Carole Channing, and it's
Carole Channing, the television and film people, right? Me too.
Such a thrill. And I told Carole Channing, I said, your smile has been just brightening our lives always. She goes, "That's so sweet. Are you Armenian?" And I go, "No." I go, "No, I'm Jewish." And she goes, "Same thing."
Same thing. A couple of nights ago, we had Marion Ross on from Happy Days.
I noticed that.
Yeah, she was wonderful.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Was she here in Los Angeles that you did it from?
Yeah, Woodland Hills. And her estate is called the Happy Days Farm.
Is that right?
It's called the Happy Days Farm. Yeah, her son Jim Eskman was on with her. Who's an incredible vocal impressionist and so much more. And it was really.
I know Jim.
Yeah, Jim is fantastic.
Well, I don't know him personally, but he actually did the voices for the Audible version of my book with Tom Petty.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Wow. I thought, who is this guy? Because he does.
I'll have to ask him about that.
He does both voices, but he put a lot more into the Tom Petty voice than into mine. As he would, he really does Tom Petty's voice, but mine is just kind of like a psychiatrist, just asked very straight.
Yeah.
But he did a good job. I listened to it and I got into it.
It's amazing. Yeah, he was on and we've chatted. They loved being on the show and they called and Marion and I chatted right after the show on the phone. And then he sent a beautiful letter and note and it was really, really nice. But,
that's cool. I saw Marion. I was thinking of her because of him. And,
Marion
that's Ross, so cool that you guys.
Not everybody knows that's mother and son, right? Yeah.
I never knew. Just recently. Right. He's the son of Marion.
The son of Marion Ross.
Right.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of those Audible books. I understand.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. And a lot of acting, of course, too.
Yeah. All right. So you're going to tickle those ivories, huh?
This is an Orange Raincoat.
All right.
I can see the keys as well. There we go. Born and raised in Elizabethtown, inside a song of Kentucky, high school dropout skating around. I can't help it if I'm unlucky. Pajamas, plaid and flannel, a 10-inch Zenith, black and white. It only gets one channel. And I'm in orange raincoat walking when the rain starts coming down. I'm in orange raincoat walking through a blue umbrella town. Bored to tears in Elizabethtown, enduring dark days undaunted. I got nothing to do but circle around all the places we once haunted. You with your patchouli and your pepper spray, going to your auditions. You every blue Kentucky day with all your superstitions. And I'm in orange raincoat walking when the rain starts coming down. I'm in orange raincoat walking through a blue umbrella town.
Blue frisbee stuck up on the road. Blue pinto park down the line. Every day I search for proof. Every day still so gone, gone, gone. Every day you're still so gone. Day in town I all places make you cry. Way back when our world still mattered, we used to cross the Rubicon when it ran through Kentucky. But ever since you've been so gone, I haven't felt so lucky. And I'm an orange raincoat walking when the rain starts coming down. I'm an orange raincoat walking through a blue umbrella town. I'm an orange raincoat walking when the world starts letting me down. I'm an orange raincoat walking through a blue umbrella town.
That is fantastic, my friend. That is really, really fantastic.
Thank
You
you,
know,
Jim.
your music has so much heart and soul, you know, it really has a lot of depth to it. You really
Thank you.
call up the reserves, right? You really you dig deep.
I try to. I try to do songs that are genuine, and I feel them, and those are the best songs that are real. You know, that you feel. You can't fake that. You know, and you can't always get in touch with it. And I hadn't played it on piano for a while, but it kind of, oh yeah, this song will sometimes remember me. You know, and
Yeah.
I always thought it was one of our best.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that. I think heart and soul is what it's all about. That's what it helps. And often you play in clubs, and it's hard for people to hear you. So I appreciate this opportunity to be at my own piano, and this
Yeah.
couldn't have happened just a few years ago. So it's still new for me,
No.
and I appreciate it. The
Oh,
opportunity.
a lot of people have been saying that as they've been coming on the show. If they're a performer, they're saying that they really enjoy this opportunity to sort of express themselves, especially during everything we've been through the last year, where they haven't been able to do that because everything's been shut and closed, and so this is sort of re-energizing them to want to perform again, to create and
Yeah.
inspire, and you're having that happen too, I guess.
Yeah,
Huh?
and I've been wanting. A lot of us have been wanting to perform, but to get an opportunity. And some shows they'll want you to record a song and send it, and that's much harder because then you could do it a million times and not get it right. So
Yeah.
I made a few mistakes, but I did it, and then you got it. So
Oh,
doing it
yeah,
live is
yeah,
great too. And
absolutely. There's
people
something
around the
about it.
world are watching
They're
live. That's
watching
great.
around the world, and it's like a gift when you're doing it live. It's like a special treat for all of us. And that's how I always look at it. I tell the guests that I say, "No, no, it's." They're like, "Oh, should I do something live?" And I'm like, "If you want to, because not everybody does. We have a few that have come through who like, oh well, I don't like how
Sure,
I sound when I'm not in the studio, and
sure.
I want everything to be sort of exact. They almost don't want to hear an a cappella or what have you, so they won't necessarily do that. But most will, which I think is kind of nice because it's a little bit of a treat. It's something extra special that you're doing while we're all here together on the show, right?
It is, and not everyone is the kind of musician that can sit down and play their own song. But as I'm sure even a great songwriter, you're used to the big version, but when you hear him do the song alone, there's a special magic to that. And so I love the opportunity. And
plus
and
the
also,
other things people notice too when you were live. Juanita says, "Oh, matching shirts, great color coordination." Yeah, what color is your shirt? It does look like our colors are the same.
it's kind of a burgundy here. I didn't
So
know.
is mine, like a
Wow.
dark maroon burgundy, right?
That's brand
Now,
new.
hey, now is that,
I'm getting a new shirt for this show.
I was going to say, is that sort of like a little mental telepathy here? Are we both
It shows that there's certainly a
wavelength,
connection.
kindred spirits here?
I think so. I mean, you mentioned we talked about Dick Van Dyke right there.
That's a clinch. That's a clinch right there.
But yeah, I think that is it for sure.
You have, I think there was one more you wanted to do too, right? Something else you wanted to do? Was it guitar or
another song? Good. Yeah, I'll do them all night. But
I know you will.
Often they'll get 6 ready, and then they'll have you do 2. So I appreciate it. So
is that what they do? They when you go on, they have
they,
but
sometimes
they, those, them, those people.
But also, some of them are just we get into good talks, and there just isn't much time. But you have a lot of time, which is nice.
Yeah, I like to blend things in. I like to blend in the conversation and the music and the photos and just a lot of different. It's just the how I like to do it. A full experience.
It's nice, and for me, people, it's usually one or the other. Or I'll do many shows, just Tom Petty or just Simon and Garfunkel. So to get to talk about all of it is really a nice treat for me.
Oh, my pleasure, my friend. My pleasure. Spread the word about our show, of course. And
I am, and I have as well. But
as
I try to be a good self-promoter without being annoying, but I do have.
That's a whole other thing now that everybody has to do. They got to do all this self-promotion.
Yes.
And it's a whole new world. I know.
And it's an art. And I'm a music journalist, so they send me a million things. We write about this, but the truth is, unless you have a publicist, you have to do that alone. And some people are really aggressive, and I never get upset because that's what it takes.
Yes.
And those are often the people that are really, that the getting ahead. That's really what it takes. But it's not in the nature, as of most, certainly musicians, to sell themselves. It's not easy, and songwriters, and it's like probably the hardest thing for a lot of us.
It is. Yeah. What is this one?
Well, since it's June, I'm going to do a song about Halloween. It seems like a good time for that. We were talking about Sammy Kahn, who wrote Let It Snow, Let It Snow. And he wrote it on the hottest day of the year in LA.
Yeah.
And like most Christmas songs written by a Jew, of course.
Irving Berlin, White Christmas.
Yes. Yeah, Philip Roth said he was the great Jewish genius of all, Irving Berlin. He took the Christ out of Christmas and made it about snow. He took the blood out of Easter and made it about fashion, their Easter parade,
I did have a question that I've been wondering about. Are you Jewish?
My son, why do you mention it so much? But I'm interested in songwriting too. And there is a predominance of great Jewish songwriters from that generation. And no one would ever explain to me why, but
a lot on Broadway too. A lot connected to Broadway. Yeah,
most of those songs, were written for Broadway. A lot of them.
Yes,
and but those guys didn't want to talk about it and change their names.
They would change the name. Marsh Hauser would become Marsh or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, even Sammy Kahn. It wasn't Sammy Kahn originally.
Well, what was his original name? Irving something. Maybe?
Irving Berlin was Isidore Berlin.
Izzy Berlin, and Danny Kaye was
Kaminsky, was it?
Something, yes, right. And he picked Danny Kaye. Yeah.
We never you didn't seem like a Jew. I mean,
no, I thought it was Irish or something. Yeah. Danny Kaye. I mean, that sounds very Irish.
Yeah, part of it is just that it's funny to be, to have a name. Because my mom, what's the name of any girl I was dating to see if it was Jewish? But we don't even have a Jewish name. So part of it is not religious as much as I just think it's funny.
People think I made up Jim Masters. They think that's too smooth. You made that up for TV and radio and everything. You can't be Jim Masters. I'm like, yeah, I'm the 5th one, and it's real. I didn't make that up. Because a lot of people pick their names out of the hat when they're on the air or whatever. They pick a name. But
I said, 5th one, you mean you're Jim Masters the 5th? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, James, really. Yeah.
You are really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
and
cool.
So
is that British?
Why would I? Yes, Yorkshire,
very nice.
Yorkshire. I do love pudding.
James Masters. James.
Yeah.
Wow,
It sounds
to To be the fifth, that's really something.
English, the master's part is English, and then father's mother's side, Ireland, and then my mother's side, English, Swedish, and French. But so people think I made the name up, and I'm like, why would I change that name, Jim Masters? I mean, why would I pick something other than that? It rolls right off the tongue.
If it's real, but they'd probably think that can't be real.
Marty asks, is it of Greek origin, your name? Is it Italian of origin?
It mostly is Italian. It's ZOLLO. It's Italian.
Yeah.
As I said, we weren't from Italy, from Poland. But I said we. My grandfather came here as a child to Ellis Island.
And is the dominance of your family in the Chicago area, or do you have people on the East Coast too?
No, very few. I mean, my niece Liza, who I love, is a great singer. She's on the East Coast, but very few of the people my family ever left Chicago.
Oh, your niece Liza and your Aunt Judy. Your Aunt Judy.
Do you know Aunt Judy?
Yeah.
I see. Well, yeah,
Liza and Judy.
Cousin Judy, and I thought you actually. Well, are they watching? Or something?
I was going to say.
Judy Vegan is my cousin, but Liza Miller is my niece, but she's in New York, and my nephew Jason is working in the Biden administration. He had to go in front of Congress and everything. Jason Miller, and they approved him, but he worked for 8 years with Obama too, and didn't work in the previous administration. I forget who that guy was, but he's with Biden now. He's got a major position in the administration
in DC. There, amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so they're there, but the rest of my family, especially the previous generation, my generation, hardly anyone left, or they go to school, but they came back to Chicago. And I left.
You get back? Do you ever go back?
Yeah, this last year was the only time I missed Thanksgiving in a long time. I would always go with my son, and he really missed going. He loved going. He loves going to Chicago, and it's mostly the pizza, but he likes the people.
Yeah. Too. Well, you grew up in Chicago, and you left when? How long ago?
I went to college in '76. When I was college age, I went to Boston, and never lived there after that.
Yeah,
but which I kind of regret. I never was an adult and lived in the city in Chicago. I grew up in Wilmette, one of the first suburbs. That's where Bill Murray grew up. But I spent a lot of time in the city and loved it. And but I really know other cities, LA, Boston, really better than I would know, how to get around downtown Chicago.
You want to know a little music TV trivia from Chicago? I've mentioned it a couple of times on this show before, but I usually do it when it's a musical person on. Speaking of Chicago, there's a very famous television news theme that came out of Chicago. And one of the elements of that melody that you've probably heard for years, decades, and they've done various versions as far as update the sound and the instrumentation, but it was born out of Chicago and it's been used on some of the local CBS stations. Of course, in Chicago, Channel 2, WBBM was the big CBS station, and New York, WCBS, and KCBS out in LA and all the others. And it's the melody that goes da 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 da. You've probably heard that a million times growing up and everything. Written by a prolific jingle writer and trumpet player and jazz musician by the name of Dick Marks, M-A-R-X.
I know
Dick Marks from Chicago. And he also wrote themes for the Chicago Bulls and just commercials. And he's a prolific jingle writer. And his son, you know who his son is?
I do.
Richard Marks from all these great songs that Right Here Waiting for You and the 1980s hits. And
who lives there again? He went back to and lives in Chicago. But that's great. I was thinking, is this Dick Marks? Because I knew Dick Marks well. I didn't know him well, but my dad knew him, and my best friend, dad was in advertising. He's like a Chicago hero.
So he knew.
But I didn't actually know that he wrote the music. I didn't know that part of it. I didn't know Richard Marks. I interviewed him like in the 80s.
Yeah.
Long ago. He's a very good songwriter.
And that theme they've used, all over the country for a lot of the CBS stations. And there's actually a whole thing to it as far as wording. But that part where it goes, da 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 da, that's I love Chicago, Chicago, my home.
No, I didn't know that either.
And neither did I until
that's cool.
You do a little digging.
Well, speaking of Chicago and songwriting and Sammy Kahn, I told him I was from Chicago. He goes, Chicago, I know all the rhymes for Chicago. There's Wells Fargo, there's Embargo. I go, Sammy, you have to be from Brooklyn for those to be rhymes. Wells Fargo in Chicago.
Chicago,
Come on.
yeah.
Almost like Wells. But I thought it was funny. You know, they prided themselves on real rhymes, but they would do that. You know, Wells Fargo.
Yeah, that is funny. Almost sounds Boston too, doesn't it? Fargo,
Probably the way I say it, because
Cape Cod.
yeah, chowder. Get the chowder.
Do you get to travel in your career? Have you been able to do a lot of traveling over the years too?
To certain places, I've been lucky. You know, I did work with Dave Stewart of Eurythmics on his book, and he said, "Paul, I think we should go to the Bahamas to work on this book." And I thought that was a great idea. No one suggested that before, so I did do that. But usually once or at least twice or more, I would go to New York City because, you know, to interview great songwriters. If they weren't in LA, often they lived in New York. So I went to New York a lot to interview people, Paul Simon and Garfunkel, and a lot of important people. And I love that. You know, and I didn't do that at all last year either, and I missed that. And I got to Nashville and other places to interview people. Interviewed Springsteen in Kentucky. You know, so I haven't traveled much overseas, but it's been any chance to do that. I really
people can read these. There are archives of these, like you know, in print or online, where people can actually read these articles, these interviews.
Well, yeah, a lot of my big songwriting interviews are in the books.
Yeah,
I don't know if I mentioned the name enough, but it's Songwriters on Songwriting or More Songwriters on Songwriting, but also on American Songwriter. You go to americansongwriter.com.
Yeah.
I literally have more than 900 stories there now. And a lot of them I did for the magazine. And for a magazine, as you remember, has limited space.
Yeah.
So you'd have to, if it went on forever, you could only use a little, but online, I put, you know, pretty much the whole interviews, and it's been nice to how often they've been used because people want the real thing. And,
they want the
you know,
real
like
thing.
John Prine, when I started writing about him and loving him, no one cared much. I mean, Chicago, they did, but after his first album, he got a lot of people recorded his songs, but he wasn't thought of that, you know, as a world, you know, important songwriter, and that changed. And I love that. And I just happened to be there. You know, I had a great interview with him, and I love that. It didn't always happen to every songwriter, but occasionally some songwriter, just from writing great songs for years, there's a reverence. And I didn't even realize it. You know, when he died, it was on the national news.
I know.
Also, you mentioned WBBM in Chicago, and I love that. Walter Jacobson and Bill Curtis.
Bill Curtis.
Growing up. So you know that, huh? Well, he's done a lot since then, too, Bill Curtis.
Yes. Yeah. He does a show on the Decades channel where they look at different decades and all the things that have happened in that decade. Really, really cool. He's a real...
I didn't know that. He also does radio. He's on one of those funny radio shows as the
great voice. Yeah,
yeah.
Got a great voice. Yeah, one of those like newsman type thing from, you know, like a Walter Cronkite-ish for Chicago in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
People that you can really trust this guy. You knew it. It's not opinion. He's giving you the news, you know, and that was a different world. And
Bill Curtis, Channel 2 News.
And Walter Jacobson would do these stories of stuff he discovered, and that was always exciting. You know?
So you have another song ready. What is this one here?
Well, as I was saying, it's funny how we go off on tangents. But yeah,
that's a conversation. Yeah.
But the idea being that all the great Christmas songs were usually not written at Christmas time. You have to write them in advance, and
in advance.
So Halloween is a song that I've written, and actually there was another version of it. Did you see you had Bob Malone on your show? Didn't you?
Bob Malone was on our show. Yeah.
One of my great friends, and Bob Malone. He cut this song. He did his own great Bob Malone version, but in his previous incarnation, you know, he's a genius piano man. I met Bob Malone before he looked anything like he sounds. You know, he said this is kind of looks the way he sounds, but
yeah.
So he was one of the first persons to cover one of my songs, and that was exciting with the whole horn section. But since then, a really wonderful artist was talking about doing it with his band, and they're from LA and they're Latino, and so we were goofing around with it with kind of a Latino beat, and so I reinvented it. So this is the new version of Halloween. So, nice. You know, you can watch this in October too. It doesn't really work as well, you know, outside of that season, but I've been working on it, so I'm really excited about this one.
All right. Here we go.
Are you ready? It looks like Christmas decorations.
Kind of cool, huh?
Yeah.
Good stuff. You've earned that swig.
Thank you. It's complete vodka there. No.
Yeah.
I actually was at a gig, and a friend of mine had a bottle of water on the table, and I picked it up, and I needed some water, and it was vodka.
And it was vodka.
And I almost died. And she said, you know, a lot of people do that. It's not just me. I didn't know that. I said, wow. I can see how they get through our shows. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Halloween. Come on, fingers, you can do it. The jack-o'-lantern knows my name. He can beat me at my game, 'cause he has seen it all before. Underneath the sycamore, he knows there's nothing up my sleeves but the smell of burning leaves. Your tears out in the rain. It's Halloween. It's Halloween again. It's Halloween. We can make our costumes out of rags, cut our masks from grocery bags, paint our shoes with cherry wine, wash our hands with turpentine. And in our swallowtail coats, find out if this old car really floats. Fill our pockets up with rain. It's Halloween. It's Halloween again. It's Halloween. It's Halloween, yeah. All the ghosts know where you've been. Come and see what I have seen. Halloween. On Halloween. Where only ghosts can go, in the jack-o'-lantern glow. All of the dreams that we discard still stand like scarecrows in the yard. And in the branches I will see your spirit, Maggie, dressed in gauze and cellophane. It's Halloween. It's Halloween again. It's Halloween. It's Halloween again. It's Halloween.
Really nice. That's cool. I like the little earbud flip at the end too. How'd you do that?
Yeah, it took me a lot. I had to practice that for hours.
That was really cool. That's a great song too.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that you know who Bob Malone is too. That
Oh,
made
yeah.
a nice bridge. But
yeah.
I love Bob. He just came out with a new album and a version of Tangled Up in Blue that's just amazing. Really.
You know, here's
The
a great
Dylan song.
compliment. A number of people have been saying this, and I think Marty sort of got it going. He says, "You sure you didn't write for Cat Stevens?" They're feeling a Cat Stevens vibe a little bit in some of the material, which is very cool, huh?
Yeah, it makes me happy. I've gotten that my whole life because I just sound like him. I never intended to sound like him. I was more
people that
obsessed
thought
with
you were him.
Well, they didn't think, especially when I was younger, no one thought I was him because I wasn't. And he was, he was Cat Stevens then and young. But when I played the clubs in Chicago, I had a lot of gigs where I would just play in bars all night, and sometimes there are a lot of people, other times just like couples making love, like way in the back. But they would insist I do Cat Stevens songs. And if I didn't, they'd think they could hurt me, But so I learned them all, and I loved all those songs. But I had to do them then, or I'd get beat up.
Yeah, you had to do it.
But since then, every now and then someone will mention it. But they always think they're probably the first one that's ever suggested it. But then other people back then thought I did it obviously on purpose, and I was imitating him. I wouldn't even know how to. And if I tried to imitate him, it probably wouldn't sound very good.
Also, the former lead singer of the Ghosters. Tell us about that experience.
This is a real joy, Jim. Thank you. Well, the Ghosters was when I came to LA, I wanted to be a solo artist and get a record deal, and that was the intention. I didn't know where to go to get my record deal. So at the time, there were very few places you could play solo, and I was coming out of the folky thing where I play clubs in Chicago and Boston. So I had to get a band together just to be able to play around town. But it was fun too. I like getting a band. but it was called the Ghosters. It was I had several bands, but that was the one that lasted for a while, and I called it the Ghosters because I was and still am sort of obsessed with the history of Hollywood and the ghosts of Hollywood, especially then. People think now it's about like ghosting, but that wasn't even a term back then. This was the 80s. And we played a lot of clubs in Hollywood, and we made one album. I wrote the songs, and that was a good time, the Ghosters. You know, they're in different places now, all those people. But I did talk to Jill Freeman today, who was one of the Ghosters and sang great harmony. And that was just my start and learning how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think some of the songs were pretty good, but I was still learning.
Learning.
But I'm still learning. It's not like I stopped.
Yeah, we're lifelong learners, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Also learning how you do a band and just how that works. I didn't have a clue, you know.
That's it. It's like the two things when they come. Sometimes you don't know how to do it, and you learn by trial and error. Bands and babies.
That's right. You learn. You got to learn.
You're thrown into the fire with both.
Yeah, a band is less risky. You're not raising a human, unfortunately, and costs less too, but still expensive. But
you don't have to burp. You don't have to burp them either.
Well, I did have to do something.
Well, yeah, on a couple of nights where it got wild. A couple of wild nights.
Especially with music, you learn those lessons painfully because you hear it, especially if you're recording. It's like, God, that sounds terrible. There's no denying it. Not like you can avoid it. So either you learn those lessons or you try some other thing. But those are hard lessons to learn, but they're necessary.
Yeah, but they're necessary. What do you have that's coming up? What are some things that you're working on, that you're creating, that now that things are starting to open up and there is some sunshine in our lives, what does Paul have coming up that we can look forward to?
Well, thank you. I'm continuing to work for American Songwriter. As I say, AmericanSongwriter.com. Any day of the week, it can go and there's probably a new story by me. But look for my name because they get buried under other stories which I didn't write. And who wants those? No, I'm joking, of course. But I'm working on other book projects. I finished a novel, and I've gotten a lot of books published, but it's hard to get your first novel published.
Yeah.
But I have a book of photographs I've finished as well called Angelino. And I'm writing a lot of songs. I'm writing new songs with Daryl Purpose, and we're producing two of them, who's making a new album. I wrote with Dan Byrne, who's a great songwriter. And I'm just now starting several recording projects, including Barry Keenan, who's a really amazing musician, one of those guys who can play anything really well and has a studio. And I've been recording with him. And he's also just a great person, too, which is, kind of rare in the music business. So there's several of them. And I love him. He harmonizes with me beautifully. We just finished a version of Help by the Beatles, obviously, but we did a slower version. Lennon always said he thought it was too fast. It was an authentic cry for help, though. It was a number 1 hit, so they wanted it fast. So we finished a version, and he harmonizes with my voice so beautifully. And so that's been good. And there's several of my friends have recording studios. So just for the first time now, I'm able to work on some new albums, which I'm really excited about. And there are several other projects, too.
Lots of blessing and joy in your life that continue to inspire you along the way. You're legendary in the music industry. You've been doing this a long time, worked with incredible people.
Thank you.
And, still have the desire to inspire through your music and connect the world in so many ways that are impactful and long lasting. And music certainly can do that.
I agree.
What are some of those continued inspirations in your life that give you that juice to do it?
Thank you for asking. I mean, to me, a great song lasts forever. I'm as excited about Ricky Lee Jones' second album as I ever was, and it came out decades ago. I mean, to me, a great song lasts forever, and I'm excited about docking a great songwriter still. But I'm really excited about making music. That excites me more than anything, and I love to connect with a great song. And to this day, every now and then I do what's called reverse engineering on songs, where you find out the chords and you can play them. And some songs that to this day, they sounded really difficult to me. Like as I mentioned, I talked to J.D. Souther yesterday, who wrote with James Taylor a song, Her Town 2, which was a beautiful duet. Do you remember that? And
Her Town 2. I can hear the melody right in my head right now.
Nice going. I love that. You even know those names. So that alone is something in this day and age. But I always thought it was a complicated song, and after talking to him, I looked up the chords, and sometimes they're not complicated, but it's just the sound of it seems complex. So I get a lot of I get a lot of energy out of that, learning songs, and I just love songwriting more than ever, and I'm as excited about it as ever. And in some ways, I have better control of it. It was so unknown, and recording especially is a whole other thing. It was really hard to really learn how to do it well, and what you want to do as opposed to what people tell you should do. And here's the rules, but can't we do it like this? And it's taken me a long time to realize you can record any way you want. I mean, people know that now because they could do it at home. When I was growing up, you had to go to a recording studio.
You had to go to the studio, yeah.
But the idea that I thought you need a band. If it doesn't have drums, it's not even a record. But people love, tender stuff too. Solo can be very powerful. So I'm really excited about music as much as ever. And new songs. I'm working on new songs, and like the Halloween has a great drum track, and it's just so much fun. But I also, like you said, I think songs matter and they mean a lot, and great songwriting should be celebrated. And that's part of my mission, to remind people this is an artistry. You can't just learn songwriting overnight, but you can learn it by doing it for a long time. And the great songwriters, they did it for a long time. Carole King and her husband, Jerry Goffin, first husband, said they wrote a lot of bad songs before they wrote one good one. We only know the good ones, of course, but that's what it takes. So people that say, you want to write a good song in 30 minutes, here's how you do it. Don't listen to those people.
Right.
Or people, you don't need an instrument. It wouldn't hurt to learn to play an instrument if you want to write a song. It's a musical thing. I mean, you can be a lyricist and do without an instrument.
All connected, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I appreciate, and it was never my intention, but the mission of celebrating the art of songwriting. Some of us old timers were worried it would become extinct. Like Paul Simon years ago said, melody is going away. We'll lose it completely. Yeah. And I thought maybe he's right. It hasn't happened. It goes in circles. So that's part of my mission, as I see it.
Well, this has been a full circle conversation here, my friend, and I hope that you continue doing your thing, because it's great stuff. And it was really a pleasure having you here. We chatted for about 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it never feels like that, does it? It just rolls, freestyle, conversational, and I hope the show met whatever expectations you had, and you enjoyed the time with me as much as
it did. It was way better than I expected. It was a real joy. I mean, like Owen. I mean, you're obviously gifted at what you do, and it's a special talent to do what you do. It's very generous, and so it was a joy.
My pleasure. I appreciate those words. My father has always said, when anybody says something nice, ask them to put that in writing and address it management.
And your father's name, was he James Masters by any chance? I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, I was going to say, and are you Jewish? Oh, wait a minute. You're in music. You're Jewish. You're not from Brooklyn, New York? What is that? How'd that happen? They skipped over New York and went right to Chicago, I guess.
Well, they started, but
and then they migrated west. Great conversation. Thank you, Paul, for spending time with us. And matter of fact, we had Rosalind Kind on last night. And you know Rosalind, right? She's absolutely amazing. Great performer, sister to Barbra Streisand. She was.
I was pretending I knew that. I didn't realize that. She's Barbra Streisand's sister. I didn't know that.
She's Barbra Streisand's sister. Wow. Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Does she sing like Barbara?
Yeah, fantastic. She unique. She's got a unique sound, right? And they're very close. They've performed together, and a wonderful person, really beautiful spirit, and funny. Wow. Oh, we had so much laughter, like you and I have had. Just let it roll, and sort of finishing each other's sentences and stuff like that. And I love conversations like that.
Oh, I'm going to watch that. It sounds fascinating. I know people that work with Barbara, and she gets this. People think she's really difficult, but it's because she hears things so well.
Yeah,
she remembers. Like you changed that last measure. She doesn't forget a thing.
Well, Lucille Ball was like that too on set.
Right?
Lucille Ball knew everything everybody was doing, and she was very perfectionistic and exacting. But look at the result of that work. Yes. Joe Megan B says, "What an amazing soul." Thank you, Paul, for sharing your life and talent, and thank you, Joe Megan B, for joining us on the show again tonight. One of our lovelies. Great conversation. Thank you for spending time with us, Paul. Amazing songs. Jane in Sweden. Thank you, Lovety Paul. So you're a Lovety, my friend.
I'm heading to Sweden after this.
You're heading to Sweden, or you can go to Canada. Merlin says, this has been a very interesting conversation. Thank you for being here, Paul, as well. She had also asked, and you've mentioned a few new young songwriters that you particularly like.
Well, like I mentioned, I love Billie Eilish, but her brother Phineas is a true genius. He did his own album. He's writing songs like Cole Porter.
Yeah.
Every now and then there's younger people. I mean, to me, young is under 70 at this point. But every now and then there's just great, people. I mean, Beck is not young anymore, but when he came out, it's undeniable, the talent.
Oh, yeah.
Sia, who wrote Chandelier, great. I mean, a great songwriter, and
It's great stuff.
there's some really great people, and
David Foster too. David Foster, yeah,
not young but good. Yeah, Dinah David Foster,
right? Yeah. David Foster, and then he's so amazing at picking out talent, like discovered Josh Groban and all these others. He's amazing at finding talent. But I got a chance to chat with him too, David, and what a wit! Very, very funny, quick-witted.
Really? How did you know that?
Yeah, very, very funny.
That's nice when people turn out to be funny. To Randy Newman, obviously, was hilarious, and occasionally you get someone funny. That's Leonard Cohen too. Is very funny,
very witty. Kathy Short in Cleveland, Ohio. Great chat and music tonight. Thank you both. Our pleasure, Kathy in Cleveland, and more coming in here. Mary in Florida. Wonderful conversation and music tonight. Thank you, Jim and Paul. Our pleasure. Amy, nice show and great conversation. I toast you, my friend.
Amy? That isn't Amy in Atlanta, was it?
Amy is in the South, right? Amy, you're in the South.
That's close enough. Then I'll think.
And she's in the South, and she's a poet.
Oh, okay. I have a good friend in Atlanta, but that's good too.
She's
a poet in the South. A real poet. They're pretty rare. A real poet these days.
Christine in North Carolina says, interesting conversation with Paul. Enjoyable, cool songs. Thanks for sharing your stories, music with us tonight. Lovely to Paul, and thanks, Jim. Our pleasure. She's in Mississippi. Amy's in Mississippi.
All right. That's
where she is. And she's a great poet, great person. Marty Thompson in Nashville. Great show, guys. Thank you, Marty. And I don't know if you have anything left in your glass there, but we shall toast. Cheers. L'chaim.
And thank you to all the your fans around the world. It's wonderful that you've got all these people watching. That's really great. I know that's not easy to do.
No, it takes time to really patience to build, and to you got a lot of
sorry.
Well, okay. Yeah, that's the glass that was the vodka, wasn't it? You mixed up the glasses. You were supposed to take the other one.
It actually truly is water.
He says it was water. I don't know. Yeah, his chaser is black coffee.
Yeah. It's not even nighttime here in Los Angeles.
No, not yet. Yeah, it's 20 after 9 here. Exactly. Well, thanks for joining us, my friend. This was really cool. Let's stay in touch. I welcome you back anytime. Continue to spread the word about the show. Jane says, this was, as usual, a great and fun show. Thank you, Jim. My pleasure. Jane, watching in Sweden, where it's late it's like tomorrow already in Sweden.
Is it? That's what I would think.
Very dedicated lot we have here on JMS
That's
Live.
So cool around the world like that. And Cleveland, too. I mean, let's not forget Cleveland. That's great.
Cleveland, yeah, all over, and Australia and Ireland and
Africa. It's amazing.
And George Burns.
That always scares me when he comes in. It looks like a real person.
He says good night and thanks for joining us as well. He's sort of my Ed McMahon, my cohort partner in crime.
That's a good one. Well, thank you. It's been a real joy and an honor.
My pleasure. Thanks for all the great music, all the great conversation and the levity. And I think people got a chance to learn more about the man behind the music, which is a cool thing. And hopefully we'll get a chance to break bread together, whether it's East Coast or Middle, or if I'm on a TV shoot out in LA or something, I'll ring you up, let you know.
Make sure you do.
And that would be a pleasure. And thanks again for joining us. This was really incredible.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Juanita goes around the world in 80 levities. And Jane in Sweden, talk about being a trooper. It's 3:20 a.m. where she is in Sweden, and she's still with us. And she never misses an episode.
Good going, Jane. I appreciate it.
Cool stuff, huh?
That's very cool.
Road trip to Sweden.
Yeah. Well, people want to contact me, Paul at AmericanSongwriter.com, and I'm at American Songwriter Magazine all the time. But I think Jane especially should write me.
Yeah.
Swedish girls, you get
They will. My friend, thanks so much. This was really an amazing night, and appreciate all the time you spent with us. And we'll keep the porch light on for you, okay?
That's great. Thank you, Jim. Have a great night.
You're very welcome. You take care and keep smiling. And now go stretch those legs, as I always tell the guests.
I will.
Stretch the legs and feed the felines.
I will do that. Goodbye to all the lovities, and thanks for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. Have a good night, my friend. You take care. Be well.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Live from Los Angeles, California, Paul ZOLLO on the Jim Masters Show Live, Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show Series. Good to have you all with us. Good to have Paul with us as well. If you missed any of this epic episode, they're all epic. Hey, don't fret. Guess what? We have them all archived for you on our YouTube channel. That's right. If you missed any episodes, and there's over 400 episodes of our series, right there 24/7 at our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. Once again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We would really love that. That helps us big time as we're growing this channel and this experience called the Jim Masters Show Live. Click the notification bell. And if you loved, so that way you don't miss anything, when you click the notification bell, you get the little notification when we're going to go live and when we're going to have episodes and when we do surprise pop-up shows and so much more. So be sure and do that. Tell everybody you know about our show. Spread the word. Share the links on your social media. We would love that. And drop a like, a thumbs up, a like on this episode, on this video, on the YouTube channel itself. We would love that. And YouTube monitors that. So that would be cool if you could do that. And drop a comment too. And I know many of you have been doing that. You've been writing comments on the YouTube channel itself underneath the episodes, the videos. That is real engagement. And we really appreciate that. This was really terrific. Now, a little update here. Tomorrow, we don't have a show scheduled because we are gathering with friends, believe it or not, at a yacht club for brunch. Friends that have invited us to come along, and we have not seen each other in 14 months. So we're going to enjoy some time with them tomorrow, but we are back Sunday. Now, with that said, there may be a pop-up show. And if there's a pop-up show tomorrow, so again, if you have notifications, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and then you click the notifications, you'll be alerted if there's a pop-up show. And then we'll also try to announce it on our Facebook group, which is JMS Live, Lovity Hall, and also my page, Jim Masters TV. If you haven't liked and followed my page, Jim Masters TV, or follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I'm at Jim Masters TV on all of those locations. Feel free. We are going to be back on Sunday with a one and only, live from Ireland, the amazing Alex Sharp, originally with Celtic Woman, a brilliant Irish soprano and actress. She's all excited. She's a dear friend. She's with us live this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. in Ireland, Scotland, and England. So we have a scheduled show coming up this Sunday with Alex Sharp, live from Ireland. She's going to perform live. It's going to be great. But tomorrow we're off. However, we may do a pop-up show. And if we do a pop-up show tomorrow, we have a big box that arrived, a big priority box that came in the mail that we're going to open up live on the air. And it came from one of our Lovity viewers, and I'll mention who that is on that episode. So again, we may throw in a pop-up show tomorrow, which is Saturday. We don't have anything structured yet. If so, it would probably be sometime in the afternoon when we get back from the brunch. And so look for that. And again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And again, I want to open the box, at a special time. There's a special package. We may have a new visitor joining us here at the Jim Masters Show Live, who's patiently inside this big box. Yes. We are taking the day off. Yes. Oh, you mean take the whole day off? I could do that. Yeah, I could. I know you guys love the pop-up shows. We've been doing this 7 days a week. Thank you, Marty. I appreciate that as well. And Jane, thank you. Good night, all Lovities, Jim, and see you all again soon. We're definitely here on Sunday with Alex Sharp, live from Ireland, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and so much more. And again, yeah, we're going to open a package on. If we don't have a pop-up show tomorrow, we'll definitely open it on Sunday. Okay, we'll definitely open it because I want to have a special thing that we do when we open it. So. You guys are the best. Thanks for all the great comments. Thanks for all the levity. Thanks for being here. Great music and archive binging. So Amy's been binging in the archives. It's great to see some of our regulars joining us too. I know as things are opening up in the world, you might not be able to join us every time we're on live, but definitely check us out in the archives and leave a comment on the YouTube channel when you watch our series in the archives. We would love that, and do the thumbs up too. Yeah, Merlin, he was. I agree. And You guys are the best. Cool episode, great conversation, and we just love it. Kathy Short in Cleveland. Good night, Jim. Enjoy the day off. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, it's going to be nice. We're going to this yacht club our friends are members of, and we're actually going to be talking about the Loveity Cruise too, because they are they're dear friends of mine. I've known them for years, but they also own a travel agency, and we've been talking about some of the specifics of a Loveity Cruise. So we're going to chat. A bunch of friends of us are going to be getting together at the yacht club tomorrow for this great brunch. So one of the things we're also going to throw in is a conversation about the Loveity Cruise, because they own a very successful travel agency. So it's going to be fun. Good night, Jim, and Loveity hugs to all. Nice show, Jim. Trying to catch up on some episodes this weekend from New York City. Visit till next time. Yes, enjoy the binge watching, everybody. If we're not here tomorrow, we're definitely here Sunday in the afternoon. But I'll try to see if I can slip in a quick pop-up show tomorrow, possibly. All right. And open the package during the show. Yes, we're going to open up during the show. Absolutely. Good night, everyone. Thank you again for a wonderful evening. My pleasure. All of you, all the great names, and anybody that's watching. There's a lot of people who watch who never comment. They just watch and they enjoy it. So if that's you, hey, it's great to have you here as well. Whether you're watching live and commenting, or you're just watching right now live, or you're watching this later because you enjoy our series on YouTube and you watch it later on. We thank you all very, very much. So now go stretch those legs. I want to let you know also, very exciting, Ethan Slater, SpongeBob SquarePants is going to be with us on July 11th, which is going to be amazing. Looking forward to that. And many more guests. David Osmond, nephew of Donnie and Marie Osmond, prolific singer and performer extraordinaire. He's coming on the show in just a couple of weeks as well, and so many others. We have a ton of people on all next week as well. So enjoy. Look for a pop-up show possibly popping up again. I won't say because we want to do it as a surprise, but if you have subscribed to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, and click the notification bell, you'll get the notifications so you won't miss it. Because I know you guys like to participate when we are able to do these shows live. All right, gang. Thanks for joining us. We love you all. Take care. You go stretch those legs. If you missed any part of this show, it's in our archives at Jim Masters TV. Feel free. And we just love having all of you here. You guys are truly the best. And again, there you go. And 24/7, 365, our YouTube channel. Don't forget to smile. We say that all the time. I know sometimes it may sound corny to say that, but hey, sometimes corny could be good, right? Considering everything we've been through the last year. Don't forget to share that Loveity, that famous JMS Loveity. Find your Zen place. Mine is with family and friends who we're going to be seeing this summer. We're so excited. And also music and tennis and cycling and writing and all the other gardening, everything else that we do, and baseball and the ocean, swimming, surfing, boogie boarding, sailing it, swimming it. I love the ocean. I am definitely an ocean guy, a swimmer, and so much more. And another Zen place is my work in television, radio, film, and stage all these years, on air, on camera, and behind the scenes. That's another Zen place for yours truly. Find your Zen place, gang, and live it to its fullest. We say that all the time. We try to throw in some inspiration, levity, fun, all the stuff we do, and some inspiration along the way. Don't forget to relax. Got the weekend coming up. Don't forget to relax, love one another, and love yourself. It's important to do that. And as we always say, everybody's welcome to the show, regardless of your political views, religious views, height, weight, zip code, income, eye color, doesn't matter. You're all welcome to join us here at the Jim Masters Show Live. Another quick comment coming in here. And smiles from Jane. Smiles from Jane. Thank you very much. And all the great comments. Sherry Larson, good night, everyone. Thank you again for a wonderful evening. Pleasure is all mine. All right. Love you all. You guys take care. You have a great day, night, morning, whatever time it is you're watching this. And we'll see you on the next one. All right. Love you all. Take care. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.